Right, we are back for Some on the Insight. Yamato Cannon and me. And obviously, there's loads to talk about. There's actually, in theory, what's good is, I know we did an episode last week where we covered, like, if you remember, the timing was actually weird because the timing last week was, it was just before KC did the win against Top Esports. And so at the time, actually, it looked like they're almost certainly out because you just think to yourself back then, well, one, if Top Esports just doesn't lose, that's fine. Two, Flying Oyster had to be one of the ones to get the wins. And you had to also, by the way, just hope that Hanwha Life just swept everyone and kept, like, beating on everyone. So at the time we were actually doing it. Here's the thing, we didn't do it as like a doomer episode, but it was like when KC had a bunch of problems. Obviously since then they did, like, I won't even say like a Cinderella run, mate, because at the end of the day they did still lose all the games, but they got to the playoffs. Then they had the weird scenario where they actually ended up playing Flying Oyster. Funny enough, by the way, this actually had a mad historical precedent if people don't know. This is how famously in 2016 CLG got their final. Oh, it wasn't like, listen, they did also, you know, win games off like their top Korean, but what happened really is you had this team, think about how familiar this is, from Taiwan called like Flash Wars. They beat all the top teams. They got the top seed, and then what you got is you got to play them in the semis, so it's easier to get the final, which is the same case and also similar scenario. The Koreans and the Chinese had to play in the other one. So like then KC got to the final. I will say it definitely helps that they won a game in the final. That helps add a bit of legitimacy. They did also, by the way, win a game. Like a bunch of teams won a game against Hanwha Life, like so did KC, so did TL. So it wasn't like anyone was perfect. But okay, I want to start here, Yamato. Let's just get a sense as we go into this episode. How much copium is there? Like, how much was good from KC, and how much is copium for the fact that, like, what I'm sort of getting at is they did come second, but it wasn't the strongest second I've ever seen, put it that way. You know what I mean? Like, this was like, in reality, if I'm being fair, there was just only a first place at this tournament, Yamato, and then it's even debatable among Flying Oyster and KC who's second. And by the way, if we're debating among those two who's second, not, you know, Top Esports or whatever, like, we're in trouble already. Like, this is supposed to be a tournament where, remember, this is quite, I don't know about you, but I have the vibe of old MSI because it's just the one team again, and you've got the small circle. Well, everyone knows old MSI was really just about the final's supposed to be LPL LCK. That's supposed to be the banger best of 5. So I want to know at the start of the episode how much copium is there? How much real praise are we giving KC? What's your thoughts at the outset?
I don't know. This is such a Mickey Mouse tournament. Like,
it was, yeah.
For so many reasons. It's the patch was just terrible. It's like lane source getting removed. With very, very little turnover time. We don't even know if the best teams are at this tournament. Impossible to know. No tiebreakers in a single round robin is like a cardinal sin. It's like past the Messiahs when we had this amount of teams, always double round robins, single round robin with no tiebreaker. The fact that we didn't get like a TL KC game or like a Top Esports KC game, like, fair play. Like, I would predict KC would win in terms of what the form was at that point, but the fact that we didn't get that, and a team qualified based off of circumstances outside of their own. Sure, KC qualified mainly because they took one game off of Team Liquid, but it's too many damn question marks.
You want to do it point by point? On that little point there, here's a very brief thing to say. I'm actually someone who's obviously watched a lot of tournaments in my career, and as a result, I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about formats. There's two reasons I despise round robin, Yamato, and sadly, most of League of Legends has been round robin in history. It's only like in the modern day we sort of moved away from it. Two of the reasons I despise round robin were shown in this tournament. So one is, by the way, the fact that you even end up with tiebreaker scenarios so regularly, that's terrible, bro. Like, if you play like a double limb format, there is no tiebreaker. You just play matches. Once you lose, you're out. Once you've lost the 2 lives, you're out. That's it. Once you win enough matches, you're through. It's very easy. You always know where you are. And crucially, this second point is the killer, Yamato, because this actually, there is a side point I want to bring up here that people will have forgotten about, because thankfully it didn't happen. So you remember the moment that I'm describing before, where essentially KC was in a bad spot, Team Liquid was in a bad spot. It was only basically Flying Oyster and fucking Hanwha, and Hanwha was just smurfing, and they beat Flying Oyster, right? Here's what people don't seem to appreciate is, if you actually were Hanwha Life, they weren't. You know what? In the past, I've often pointed out that I have actually seen real examples. They've even admitted it before, where Koreans have match fixed in tournaments. Usually, things like to get another Korean through. That's a classic one. Or like this, when you could get rid of your main rival, you do it because if you don't know, guys, Hanwha Life could have just intentionally basically lost a game to ensure that Top Esports was definitely eliminated from the playoffs, and it would have been TL instead that went through. And you can actually make the argument, no matter what anyone thinks, like I was saying about 2016 MSI, where if you remember, was actually T1 that sucked in the groups, but then they came alive in the playoffs and won. You could even make the argument, by the way, if your hand were life, beyond like moral things that you shouldn't match fix or you shouldn't intentionally lose the game, you actually you increase your chances of winning the tournament if you make sure top esports just doesn't make the playoffs. Like TL isn't going to win the whole tournament over you. So right, I hate any tournament where basically, Yamato, you can sort of lose without it properly punishing you. Because basically the problem with round robin is, because you obviously play people in a different order, whoever you play at the end, you get these two scenarios. You either get a team that's already going to go through, but they can sort of decide someone else's fate. Well, who the fuck wants that? Because now you have all your match fixing, you just like them. Do you want to make your chat? There's a million factors that go in. And then the other one, by the way, is just as bad. Sometimes you're the team that desperately can make it through if the right result happens, but you have to like hope that the team that has no chance of making it through wins the last game, and the one that's like 0-4 wins their and tries really hard. And the problem is, again, they can't get through, so they might not like you, they might not give a fuck anymore, they're just bad anyway. Like, I think in general these just kind of suck. So thankfully it didn't happen. HLE did not do this. They allowed this to go on. And by the way, they just beat TS straight up, so there's no problem there. But if you see, this is one of the reasons why over the years I've been so against round robin, mate, because the flaws of it, when they manifest, can be really negative. Like in this scenario, like you're saying about the tiebreaker one, think about this, Yamato. When I'm playing in this tournament and it's BO3, I'm not playing like I have to win every game. It's BO3. I'm just going to win 2-1. But then at the end, suddenly you tell me, whoa, wait a minute. Actually, you know that whole thing about just winning 2-1. Actually, the teams that won 2-0 will have a better game score, so then they go through it. What? Like, you can't tell me that at the end. Like, you've given me a set of incentives in issue, which is just win the match. And at the end, I've been told, actually, it was some sort of weird thing. By the way, this is almost as bad to me as the old school. Remember way back in the day, the famous, it was the one that happened with Gambit Gaming against all the Koreans, where they were in that group, and the tiebreaker ended up being who'd won the games the fastest, which is like, what? Again, that's not what League of Legends is, bro. We're even talking, by the way, about the era when like Froggen's teams used to just go to like 50 minutes, like, lol, just farm up. Like, that's what I can't handle, Yamato. It's like, I want everyone in the tournament to just be thinking one thing. Win this match now. That's all I want you. I don't care if you win it sloppy, if you win it sick. I don't care if you win after level 1 that destroys the game at like fucking 2 minutes in. I don't care if you scale up and you have Cogmore and you win at 58 minutes. A win is a win. That's all that I care about in League. So this is a rare example where I actually get to bitch because people know exactly what I'm talking about. They saw the problems. I hate flaws like this, mate. This is why actually, if anything, I alluded to it earlier. First Stand just reminded you how much old MSI actually sucked, bro. Like, new MSI is dope as fuck, innit? I was even thinking it during this tournament, Yamato. Like, imagine if it was just these teams, but in like an actual like double limb bracket, that'd be fucking baller.
No, for sure. Like it is crazy that in a world where KC didn't win that one game against Team Liquid, we would have had the tiebreaker some time again.
Yeah, yeah, we would.
It's just complete utter garbage.
Imagine the meltdown on Twitter after that when people are getting a tiebreaker off time played in the game. Not even like, because as you say, you are right. No matter what you think of the format, the best thing about an actual tiebreaker match is you just get to feel like that decided if you went through. Like I said, you don't ever want it to be that you went through because like Team Liquid won one extra. You know what I mean? Like that's just some bullshit, isn't it? Like you didn't even do that. That was someone else. What are we talking about? This is nonsense.
No, it's completely mental. And the thing, bro, watching How Alive, I would never accuse anybody of anything, but what they were doing against Team Liquid, like it was obvious from their perspective that those games didn't matter to them at all because they already locked first. Yeah. But they're playing fucking Peanut Zyra.
I had to tell someone who wasn't a fan of League, Yamato, that actually I think this is an example of what I was describing earlier is what people are going to assume. They're going to think it's match fixing, right? You're trying to lose the game on purpose. But actually what they've done is genius if you think about it. Because since it's Fearless Draft as well, what they realized is, like, we're not going to intentionally match fix, but we're also through. So we're not going to show our best shit. So what we're going to do is just do an experimental draft, which, by the way, in a sense, can be considered like match fix because you're not as likely to win the game, but they weren't intentionally trying to throw it. Like, spoiler, they obviously in the game still tried to win. But I'm with you. When you even just saw that draft locked in, you were like, what is going on? Like, what? Like, there's no way, there's no universe. How do I life, by the way, was smurfing at this tournament? There's no way they thought that was a good draft, Yamato. There's no way. If you even knew they're never going to use this in the playoffs. It's never going to happen.
100%.
This will never appear in the final ever, this draft. No way.
It reminds me of this, back in 2018, we were hoping that Gen G would beat RNG, so we would get a tiebreaker with them to qualify because we were on 3-3, and RNG would get 4-2 if they beat Gen G. And then Genji lock in Lucian Nami, and Lucian Nami wasn't a thing. Like they basically invented Lucian Nami. And I was like, fuck these guys, the big Lucian Nami. Like, what is this? But turns out, my anger was ill placed, and obviously it was just an emotional response at the moment because we were just fucking crying our tears out because we lost against C9 in a depressing manner. But seeing the Lucian Nami locked in, I was like, what the fuck? Obviously, Lucian Nami was fucking brilliant because they just invented that shit.
Oh, absolutely.
I was just in regards to the first thing that you asked, right? It's like is KC's second placement fair? It feels bad for CFO because that effort in groups
against them.
Yeah, it's like,
yes, he did.
That series could have ended either way, right? Like we had a game 5 that ended with Zeri like jumping over a wall and Vladi just being completely zone.
Yeah, they could have won that game.
They had winning chances, and on a different day they go through and they win. Like fair play. I think Vladi like played out of his mind, but it does feel really, really bad that if you come out of the group stage going 6-2 in comparison to a team that went what 3-7, like that's crazy to even think about. It's like all your group stage effort just completely meaningless, and that's what makes the tournament so weird in terms of the scheduling. Because a point that I made before everything started was I thought KC way better team than Team Liquid, but the fact that Team Liquid placed them first is the best thing that happened for Team Liquid. Because Team Liquid bootcamped early, and also they are like a prep team that reveals their hand.
You think it's sort of fixed KC a little bit to lose to TL? Is that the premise?
Because if the schedule was different for KC as well, like let's say they played Hanwha Live first, then maybe things would have landed differently.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Or maybe they play Top Esports first. Maybe they don't upset them. Like, there's so many things in place in terms of timing as well. But I think like we're getting into the nitty gritty of what the problems of like logistics of tournaments just are. Right? It's like this is the type of shit you need to deal with. Format wise, I feel like this is like on par with fucking EWC shit. Like this is a tournament that was insanely difficult for the teams to play, and in the conversations, like I made the point, right, that I don't think this should be a part of the fucking Golden Road conversation. And if you want to fucking make, a new road, Rainbow Road, or whatever you want to call it, you want to have first stand in there, fine. But I hate the fact that we are diminishing like history and we can't make points of comparison because people want to say that Hanwha Live is the only team that can do a Golden Road now, man. Fuck that shit, man. First stand is going to be a Mickey Mouse tournament next year too, I think.
Listen, obviously be careful how you react, but the joke is, if you're going to make it a Rainbow Road, then it has to include EWC. Listen, it's so many insight, baby. We're always going to be like that around here. So, no, here's the thing. Let's keep it team by team. Let's talk about Karmine Corp thing, because I have to say, this actual tournament, funnily enough, it was reminiscent, actually, of what they did in the LEC playoffs. Remember, they had that one series in the upper bracket against G2 that were kind of underwhelming. Then they had the series against Fnatic that was like tooth and nail, like back and forth, both teams going. And then they had the final. It was awesome. So, like, they had games here. The top esports game, they were fucking dope. They fucking murdered them. Like, remember, this is one thing people don't get. Even though, by the way, it's really embarrassing. Here's the other thing as well, Yamato. The order didn't do KC any favors because it made them look like, they've done a G2 perks. They fucking shit the bed against the no-name team. Like, when they lost like Supermassive. But we didn't know at the time Flying Us is actually really good. Like, we're going to get to them in a minute. They're like a contender for second best team in the tournament, guys, for real. So we'll get to them in a minute. The problem is because KC lost so early, it just made it look like KC shit. Like, first of all, like, that's not the end of the world. Then, but it is embarrassing on paper because that region just doesn't typically get big wins, right? But then you consider they beat in the best of 3 top esports, right? People can meme all they want. I make fun last year, Yamato, of when people used to be like, hey, you remember in play-ins at MSI, Fnatic almost beat TS. It's like, yeah, they almost. They didn't do it though, did they? Like, we all saw, like, they lost the third game, like classic Fnatic style. KC actually won this series. There aren't many, I don't think people appreciate there aren't that many teams in history. Remember, this is the LPL champions, sort of random, like, 4th seed. There's not many teams in history have won a series off the LPL champions. Like, typically the best European teams ever is what we're talking about. You have to be like Fnatic or Reckless or fucking, like some, I can't say G2 because they always lost the LPL teams. You have to be like a super cracked out team to actually win a match like that. So, like, I do think you saw, here's what's funny. I'm not going to flame them, but I'm not going to overpraise it. I think you saw all facets of Karmine Corp at this tournament, mate. You saw what they're like when, like, as you're saying, when they get kind of caught with their pants down and they don't know where they're at in the meta. You saw by the end, by the way, they were fucking figuring it out. They were getting some really good drafts, some really good play. I think you even saw throughout the tournament, almost every player had their ups and downs. Bro, there was a couple of games early on where Yike was like, what are you doing, mate? There was even a game or two, we criticised it last episode, where I don't even know what Canna was up to. Like, it's like he just decided he was on some bullshit. Like I said, like, he thought he actually was the T1 top laner again. Like, I don't get some of his picks, but by the end of the tournament, I thought, actually, by the way, the ones you'd want to have their tournament, Vladi and Kalist, by the end, did give a very good showing of themselves, and they showed themselves against some of the best players in the world, too. I thought it was pretty good overall. Because you have to remember, listen, I'll never do what the Karmine Corp CEO guy did. No, you cannot describe your team as a bunch of kids with like 3 24-year-olds, you fuck, when one of them was one game from Worlds like 5 years ago or something like that. Those are not kids, but you did have 2 rookies. I'll give you that. Yeah, I think for 2 rookies, this is an amazing performance. Yeah, were you?
Well, I think Vladi, I feel bad for Vladi because I think that he's in the shadow of Kalist's hype.
He's not French, let's be real. If he was French as well, mate, his name would be twice as big right now, wouldn't it? Come on. He's mega. He is mega.
We've had so many conversations of baby caps, the replacement of caps, and it's like Vladi has done the closest thing to it. Like, that in terms of his split play and then also this international. Like, he is so damn good. It's like he has, when he's playing Talia, Azir, Yon, and Victor, I feel like, damn, he's just elite level. Yeah. And I think that's like the main thing. It's like KC have like a limited amount of weapons in like the weaponry. I think like Yike, when he's playing Maokai, Ivan, and like Sejuani, he has like his set few picks that he performs really, really well on. And it seemed like as series went on, and for example, in that HD series, I'm trying to remember what Yike played in that game 4. That's like always when they run out of steam, they end up on these fucking Draven drafts, you know? It's like from outside, it might seem crazy. It's like, oh, what the fuck are they doing? Like they have lost like 3 crucial games picking Draven blind.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's implied that they must be good on scrims on this, mate, because they've just picked it too many times. They picked it almost every chance they could in all playoff settings, yeah.
And it's also from their perspective, probably, it's like in terms of how it develops. I do think that the final draft against How Alive, it made a lot more sense than the previous ones, where they like set up the cannon, they had the Pantheon, they had the Renata as a counter into of course, the Gragas support. They actually had like champions that could potentially snowball an early game, but I think the idea of snowballing against How Alive that probably plays some of the best defensive league we've seen in a long time is a tough proposition, but it showcases that KC, in terms of where they're at in terms of their team development, it's very clear that they are still limited to go a lot deeper. And that's obviously a very big challenge when it comes to Fearless. And these are some of the challenges that like G2 face too, right? It's like they run out of steam. A player like Labrov doesn't have champions. This is just something that teams now have to figure out because Fearless is going to be permanent, apparently. But I think Vladi, super fucking crazy good player. I think that Kalist had ups and downs, and I respect KC for sticking with Tagamus. Because now it's super clear that it just makes sense. I think whenever Tagamas got through lane phase, there was so many moments where he just found like crucial engages, good kind of awareness of what he needs to pick in the game, and the fact that he was a big part of the win against Top Esports, that they were willing to pivot into the range supports that are more lane dominant. That's something that is so crucial at this tournament in particular. They were willing to pivot into the Ashe, play the Karma, and contest Top Esports in the bot lane, which I think was so big in that matchup, because if you want to break Top Esports apart, is pick a contesting matchup a bot and level 3 gank them, because when Jackie Love Crisp dies once, they're gonna die again and then die again, and that's just the way it goes. It was the same when Top Esports was lost to G2. It was like fucking Jackie Love dying level 2 before Tian cleared his camps, and then Top East was just imploded and they died on bottom side. And then of course in the aftermath everyone called Tian a choker, but hopefully at this point Tian haters see it for what it is. You know, I think the main consistent thread, it just seems that Jackie Love is just so, you know, one-dimensional in the way he approaches things, and I love the fact that Casey found the opportunity to break them apart. I think Kana as well, it's like the fact that KC picked him up, where he was so unwanted, and they managed to find this pivot mid-season last year to find Kana and also closer. I think was a brilliant move, because I'm sure Kana just took a minimum wage contract to just jump in to get his name out there, and it was just like the perfect synergy. And now Kana is in the contention of being just a top laner, a best top laner in LEC, and I think he had a very, very solid tournament. Didn't really easily fall to Zeus, who, in my opinion, is just the best player in the world right now. And I think KC as a whole, like, they're bringing a lot of good shit coming back to Europe. They should be on paper like the contender, like the number one contender to win the championship, which I have to add is a completely different fucking position to be in. Being the underdog it's way easier to break out when you don't have the same amount of eyeballs. Now there's an expectation for you to perform, and G2 and Fnatic and all these sharks around you are going to view you very differently in terms of how they prepare and what they reveal and how they act. Like, there was a story about how KC got basically G2's drafting strategies through scrims before the finals even started, because G2 maybe took for granted that they're going to be playing against Fnatic in some shape or form. And there's a lot of danger in that, of course. And in the end, it's like now KC are going to play a split with this new knowledge, new information, but everyone's going to fucking pay attention to them in a very, very different way. It's the same in the UFC, right? It's like getting the championship is way easier than keeping the championship, because everyone's fucking watching you. Like, defending is a whole different game. So I'm curious to see, I'm excited to see the development here.
Yeah, if people don't know, there are, like, if you go to certain weight classes, probably the most notorious whatever is light heavyweight at the UFC. Oh, there's a bazillion people have won the belt. There's not that many people have defended it, especially not multiple times. No, I'm with you on that bit. That's actually the thing, if you notice on talk shows, I always give credit to people like G2 and Dylan Falco for in Europe, is, bro, they weren't just winning the split. That means that basically what you have to realize is, since everyone, like you say, puts the spotlight on you and studies everything he does, and in fact, because you're the top team, by the way, they actually assume you're playing the game the most correctly, and they learn from you as well, and they find counters. Because everyone's nerding up like that, it actually means it's totally logical every now and then you should lose when someone finally overtakes you or makes it. So if you don't ever lose, that actually tells me that you as the champion are sort of like shadow boxing yourself and your own flaws, and you're actually finding ways to sort of like level up without being beaten and being forced to level up, which is really hard. So we can get to that in a minute, because I'm with you. That's the real problem for Karmine Corp. It's like they're going to come into the next split thinking like we're number one, and it's like, yeah, but that battle literally continues every match day because you're number one. Everyone's chasing you, like we say. In fact, they've even just watched, if I'll use this to make my points, they'll even have seen from this tournament things they can do against you. Like, I'll tell you the first immediate thing I thought as a cynical layman watching this tournament, Yamato, is at the beginning of the tournament, you can see why people were concerned about the whole lack of lane swaps, because actually, all of a sudden, the Kalista lane didn't look as sick because Targamas looked a bit sketch early on, and you thought, fuck, how are they going to even get through these lanes? Remember, you're not playing bombs, you're playing like Viper and Jakilov and all these players we're talking about. In fact, the joke is, you could actually have made the case, Yamato, the bot lanes in this tournament were some of the strongest on their teams. Even the Doggo guy's a pretty fucking good player that we all remember from years ago when he was on that like PSG talent stand-in that one time when they went to the semis of this tournament. So, in theory, all the bot lanes are killers. So you could have been concerned, like, well, what are they going to do here? Well, the good news is, as you say, they got through that point in the game and they will still be effective. But I'll tell you what, Yamato, if I'm any other team in the league, especially the ones with the killer bot lanes like G2 and Fnatic, the first thing I'm thinking is, mate, as soon as you come back to the league, KC, you're getting the fucking Movistar Koi treatment. We're just keeping your bot lane down all day long. Like, this is just ganks it, because essentially, if you ever watch their team, if you can just stop that bot lane ever getting like going and getting rolling, then Alvaro's just like half as good. All his impact just doesn't happen on the map. It's the same thing with Targamas. I can see what they've seen in him, what they want out of him. Like, he does add something clearly, and I'm going to go ahead and guess he must actually, people say his comms have improved. I think they have to have. There's no way he's making all these players blind to me, but I'm with you. It certainly, you still did see like a flaw or a blueprint to beat them. And then if I go back again, the Canna one is wild. That should be for real. Like, I know we don't do this as an award, but that should almost be like the fucking, what do you call it?
Best comeback
like,
of all time.
Yeah, like, you actually have, by the way, you have this concept in the NFL. It's called comeback player of the year. It's usually for people who are injured, like, you know, someone who's out for 2 years in injury. If you come back and you play at like an all-pro level, you can win this award famously. So, like, bro, he should get that, because actually, you were being kind. Right now, he's probably one of the best top laners in the world. Like, he'd be like top 10 at least, mate. He might even be like, I don't know, fucking 6th or something. Like, he'd be up there. Like, there's a lot of people who struggle from that position. And as you say, mate, there wasn't like some bidding war. The joke is, if things hadn't gone so badly in like, it wasn't even your split, it was the one afterwards. In the Karmine Corp last year, this guy would probably be in like fucking Turkey right now, or like LTA South or something insane, wouldn't he? Like, or in PCS or LG. Like the joke is, or he'd just be on the bench. He wouldn't be playing League of Legends as far as I know. This, by the way, there is no university be at first stand, and he'd be in the final of first stand. Like, that's crazy. But I'm actually glad he got his chance, because as you see, people definitely overlooked this guy. His talent is way bigger. And I'm with you on the Vladi one. I think you nailed it there, mate. The one person I actually feel mildly sorry for in KC is Vladi, because, bro, if this guy was French, holy fuck, he'd be like printed on the, he'd be like on the side of the Louvre right now, being projected or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, because I know what you mean. Here's the other thing as well, Yamato. In terms of the two roles, we all know which is more sexy. Which is more sexy? A guy who plays mid lane and can play like Yorn, or a fucking ADC? Your mind, ADC's boring as fuck, isn't it? It's only once they even get more powerful that you even care about them in the game. It's like, I'm with you. The real way you know that like the French angle is playing heavily to Calist's favour. He is mega, by the way. Like, he is the next like Forgiven, Reckless Upset, like one of these like mega players who could be made. But I'm with you. We did that Michael Jordan thing where every single vaguely good mid laner, guys, they even did it to fucking Nemesis and Humanoid, even though their style isn't even vaguely like Caps. Every good mid laner, we just go, is he the next Caps? Because we're so desperate for the B1. Vethio, when he's carrying all... We just want to believe there has to be a leader when he comes in with the assassins. But the joke is, none of them ever live up to Caps. We actually have a guy now who even playing style-wise is trying to be like Caps. He's even some like cocky fucking solo queue player who's trying to smurf on everyone. He's even smurfing on international. And we do, and because he's not French, we missed the angle. Like, it is the next Caps. Like, we didn't even do that for Vladi. At the end, we just went, oh, he won a split. Cool. That's actually quite good. I agree, Matt. It's kind of whack, actually. If anything, the Calist angle means Vladi's probably underhyped. I'm with you, because I also noticed this as well, mate. When I watched all the other shows, everyone I know gives him MVP of the split. Like, they said he basically was the best player in the LEC.
Yes.
I think he actually is probably underhyped at this point, mate. I'm with you.
100%, bro. Like, what he's done is so damn incredible. It's like even in the series that they played against G2, like Caps threw everything at him. Yep. Everything. Every Tristana angle, every side lane trap, everything. Caps was fucking trying every single trick in the Caps book, and he just fucking bobbed and weaved. He just bobbed and weaved. I think Vladi is, to me, the most exciting thing that has happened. I think Calist is super, super insane. I think KC as a whole, the fact that they've managed to make a championship team with players that, like, usually it's like super teams are made for a reason. It's like, oh, it's like the usual suspect, the usual names that we see popping up, like the Fnatic roster, for example. That gets excited because it's a known quantity. They managed to do this with, of course, taking Ike from G2 and him finding like even a higher peak on this team than he did in G2.
Oh, sure.
And then with players that were not of interest at the time where they got signed by any of the other organizations, which is super, super cool. Vladi, they found very, very early on, very young player. Calist, they also, it's like it was the pivot, because it's like KC, how they pivoted to Calist was basically them not making playoffs in the LFL with Kaori, came from EG, and then you said, okay, we're gonna take this, we're gonna do everything we can to bring Calist over, and then boom, look at this fucking superstar that got hit with the age restriction. Because that part is kind of crazy too.
Oh,
it's like it's certain moments in history, like you mentioned yourself, it's like getting 10th back to back kind of would have had a different career altogether. It's crazy how the butterfly effect
you're
of
also
the
right.
KC roster.
People are going to forget now, the Kaori guy had decent mechanics too, and he was like an aggressive player. Like, if he actually was good, maybe you don't even see us. Maybe they don't gamble on him. Maybe it takes a year longer or something. It's true. It's true.
It's nuts. It's funny how things go. I this is a big part of what I love about history. That's how I think it's so important to keep it clean, you know, when it comes to like MVP awards or how everything is being framed. That's one thing that pains me a lot is with let's say the more casual viewer. They don't give respect to anyone that watches everything and has watched everything so far, because some of the stories, for example, the T1 Worlds runs, I feel like they have also been tarnished in the conversation, because a lot of fans took it for granted they're going to win. But the story is that they almost didn't make it to Worlds, and somehow from an underdog position, in theory, when it comes to gameplay wise, they managed to fucking push through. That's the incredible aspect of the story. You know, it's like, oh, T1 boring, winning Worlds again. You didn't predict T1 to win? Are you stupid? I think keeping the story clean is so important. I think it's the point of everything, man. That's why I love esports.
Also, by the way, I just want to put this out there, right? The obvious area someone could be critical about Vladi is, yeah, he hasn't had like the craziest champion pool. I will just remind you, he did just play a split and an international tournament in Fearless Draft, including BO5s. So here's the problem, guys. Here's a new rule for analysis. I'm not going to hear the like, you only play X champions. Normally, the only play X champions is a critique because in a normal meta, there might only be 4 champions in that like top lane or ADC. When you're playing Fearless Draft, that means you are playing that champion into drafts you cannot know what they're going to be. You are almost certainly getting tested, even on those champions, in a way that you don't normally see. So actually, I don't even take that as that much of a criticism. Remember, he is still quite young in his criticism. He's only played 2 splits, guys. He's played 2 splits in first stand. Like, this guy is actually tracking phenomenally. He looks really fucking good right now. Right, let's flip over, because I actually think we'll go to the champions later. I do want to actually glaze fucking Flying Oyster. Bro, before, like I say, the timing meant no one really even giving them a credit. You just look at them, you do what I did. You got the Junjia guy. He was pretty decent when he was an LPL player. Like, I could believe he could be all right. Doggo's not bad. We all know that guy. There's 1 or 2 players you know here if you follow the scene. But first of all, not a single fucking one of you knows that mid laner. Don't even pretend you do. I think some of you couldn't even properly spell his name right now if you didn't have access to a keyboard or couldn't Google. I don't know if you'd properly correctly get it spelled. Also, I'm just going to put this out there. Even though they did play dope, I almost feel like people did want it to just be like, they just wanted to hate on KC by pointing out they got wrecked by this like nobody team. By the end, they beat everyone, including TES. Guys, they actually, like I was saying, I'm not trolling when I say that. I think it's actually debatable who the second best team at this tournament was. Flying Oyster was really good. Remember, here's the difference, Yamato. There was only, in fact, I don't even think they were that bad against Animal Life. They were good the whole tournament. From the beginning to the end, they actually showed me some very high-level performances. The problem is this, Yamato. I'll never be able to get out of my mind that like cursed image which every fucking top esports and TL fan should remember forever. The more, you know how if you're Korean, you had that famous one like that damn arrogant smile of Perks or whatever. You know all the like famous quotes and memes of things you hear. Everyone who's a TL or a TS fan, you should hate that fucking driver kid and that whack ass at like. Whatever that is like burned into my brain. So unfortunately, Yamato, it makes it like a meme because he was doing that like K-pop dance or whatever. Bro, I can't lie, they made really good. Like even though that's some whack, like I don't know, doing a K-pop dance. I actually did think this team gave a really good account for that. Look, I'll be fair. I don't know if they could ever replicate it. I don't know if they go to Worlds if they do this. Maybe this was just like, they captured lightning in a bottle. This is like Cinderella at the ball. But I'll tell you what, for the actual tournament, I thought they give a really good showing for themselves. But I was very impressed with Flying Oyster. They weren't just some meme team to me.
No, they were fucking playing. They were playing. I think like their bot lane, Doggo. Like we've seen many moments of Doggo playing insane. He carried on. Like he had fantastic moments. I think that. For sure, Doggo was like the second best performing AD at this tournament for me. Yeah. I think it was fantastic. Junjia, what a stud. It's like in terms of his range of champions, because that's always the main thing. It's like we mentioned Vladi's champion pool, but it's like you have to play what makes sense with your teammates. It's like we saw what happened when Jakob was playing, for example, Zinza or Vi. It just didn't work. And I think if your jungler is not performing on Vi, you can't easily just slam an Ahri, slam an Aurora. It doesn't really make sense. The same thing is like Kana didn't perform on tanks, because I think tanks as a role, you need to kind of find opportunities to break through mid lane, because you can't push side against a lot of things. So I think it requires just heavier communication, like BB does so well. So it's like there's a lot of moving pieces in terms of what you can and cannot play. But what's so cool about CFO, especially with the 2 players, it's like we in the top lane, like we were asked a question on the last episode. It's like, are we going to see like teams exploring more 6-man rosters in terms of Fearless? I think this was a very, very good execution of it.
It worked, didn't it? Yeah.
So you have a tank player, and then you have the guy that wants to play like the Rumble and the Jace, and has Kisanta in the back pocket in worst case. It's like, I think this was a very, very cool concept, because as an extension, this allows Junjia to play the wide range of champions that he did at this tournament. He played great in Italy games. He can play the carries. He can play the Skarner. He can play the Sejuani. He just has such a wide range of a pool that he can apply, because the pieces around him also allowed him to do so. I think Honkyu, it's like this is 17-year-old superstar, youngest player at the tournament. It's super cool to see young and up-and-coming talent. I think he kind of reminded me of Vladi in a lot of sense in terms of how he played. He had like really, really good Talia performances, had a very similar champion pool. And I think when I like looked at the scenario CFO versus KC, I did think that if the series went very, very deep, that the champion pool of HomeQ and the range of CFO, how many champions they could play, that would be like the main edge for them. But in the end, the Nila and the Corki managed to pull through. CFO at this tournament, I think that they benefited heavily by the chaos of what the tournament was, for sure. In terms of removing lanes up and so forth, it seemed to be like a very, very good benefit to them as well. It seemed like they had a very, very good idea of what they wanted to play from day one. Like strategically, it was super, super sound, and through, like as you mentioned yourself, it's like very consistent throughout the tournament. Very, very respectable showing. I am starting to get to the point where, you know, LTA is very, very hard for me to watch because it's so late at night. And on the weekends, LTA is like it's fucking 2 a.m., 3 a.m. it ends. And then I have to wake up at 7 a.m. Bro, I might shift and just watch fucking, fucking LCP now instead of LTA because the cost is just not there. And I was always asking for reasons. Like the PCS fans, they were always like, Yamato, why don't you watch PCS? It's like they need to give me reasons to watch it. And I think this tournament was a pretty damn solid reason.
No, I'm with you as well. The thing that people won't appreciate is, remember, the fucking Flying Oyster team was just 2-0ing everyone in the group stage too. Like, it wasn't like they were playing the craziest nail-biter 3-game. By the way, some of these games as well, they actually just straight clap people. They just fucking... And then even the series we're saying they lost to KC. I'm with you, mate. Look, fair play to KC. They won the series, but that was a really fucking close one. That was like, if you're the Flying Oyster, there really is a world where you went to the final here. Now, look, I think either team would have lost anyway to Handball Life in the final, blah, blah, blah. But no, it's legit. Yeah, I thought their run was very legit, mate. I tell you one thing it does do, which is this is the one aspect that's positive about First Stand, is, bro, because of how the calendar works in League, we're not that far from MSI, guys. It's only a few months. Well, here's the thing. Normally, I don't really give a flying fuck about anyone that's not from the real. I don't even really care about LTA at this point in time, mate. But actually, if Flying Oyster go, now it's like that fucking Leonardo DiCaprio Django Unchained line. Now, you had my curiosity before. Now you have my attention. Like, I'd actually be interested to watch this team play, mate. Also, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, people might remember that PSG talent team was like taking BLG to like 5 games or whatever fucking last year. People forget that those teams aren't complete write-offs, but it's just that normally no one pays attention to the games. I guarantee you, if a TL or a fucking European, if a Fnatic plays against this Flying Oyster, you will all be paying attention. You won't just go, oh, they'll probably just win that one. I won't even bother getting up in time. You'll be fucking watching that one. I'll guarantee you right now, mate, because everyone knows now, like, you're on notice. They can actually beat you. And as we saw there, it's why actually Taiwan has always been the most underrated of the countries in League of Legends. It's like, I think one of the problems they have, Yamato, is like sometimes their big name players went to the LPL and they just didn't succeed. Like it wasn't the right squad, etc. So it makes people write them off. But it's like people forget they are still like importing to another country and they are still going through all like weird, by the way, I won't get into it, but they have their own weird prejudices, etc. And obviously they have the whole thing where like there's a million people competing for your role, etc. But like, no, I don't think you can ever. Here's the thing you should never do. Never write off this region, though. It has just got too many upsets historically. It's actually very impressive, the history of the region. Because if people don't know, even though it's like they have players that could be comparable to the Asian, but their amount of money investment is non-existent, mate. They have so fucking little money. It's crazy. I mean, the joke now, like you're saying, they don't even have their own league anymore. They just have to play with like all the others like just combined together, like in some mad universe where they play like Japan and shit like that in the playoffs. Like it's actually bonkers. It's why also, by the way, no one should ever just whine about their region. Like it's one thing to complain about your region for the ecosystem, but if you're good enough, like this team, you can make it still. You can still be good enough and get out of the fucking ghetto and come and actually ball out like this. There's no, like I say, if they'd have only done it in the group stage as well, you might, like if they'd just gotten 3-0 in the semis, then I'd go, whatever. They, like you're saying, they caught people surprised. No one expected them to be this good. TS, by the way, also just helped them and shit the bed, much like the old TS who Knight lost to fucking GAM Esports at that Worlds like 3 years ago, whatever. But this wasn't just like people helping them, bro. They caught the alley-oop and 360 slammed it in people's faces. Like they literally beat 3 of the top 4 regions. You can't fuck with that. That's legit.
I think it's the opportunity in terms of where obviously they are playing from geographically. It's like in terms of being able to play on the Korean server, having access to scrims on occasion. I think is a really, really big deal. But I think also it's like it always seems like the concentration of talent is always in the right spot. It's like CFO took over, of course. They brought in Junjia and Maple retiring seems to have like kind of shifted. Of course, the the paradigm in terms of like PSG Talon, of course, being the top dog, but the concentration of talent and the location, like that's so crucial in terms of how to min-max a very, very tough situation to be in terms of where your player base is at, in terms of what your finances are and so forth. So very, very well done. You know, it's definitely like a point of inspiration. I think that some other regions can take inspiration from. Speaking of, you know, geography, I think this is a good time for me to mention our sponsor, ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN is like checking in your bag at the airport without a lock. Who knows how many creeps are just going to go through your private stuff, you know, it's just going through all these things and so many different workers. You have no clue. You have no clue. ExpressVPN, you know, all your traffic just flows through, of course, whatever you're connected to. Nowadays, you know, who knows what kind of a world we're going to live in a couple of years. Maybe thought crimes are going to be something you will be convicted for. Who knows? All your data, all your information, your ISP has access to that, and they can sell that data to whoever, and that's going to affect, you know, your advertisements, whatever, everything that flows in your face. It's kind of crazy how, in terms of how all algorithms work, they are trying to kind of usher you into certain locations, because the more data they have on you, more information on you, the easier it is for them to kind of control where you're moving. So control your data, use ExpressVPN. It reroutes your traffic very, very easy with one damn button press. I use ExpressVPN on my phone, on my iPad, on my PC. I use the feature of just rerouting a specific browser all the time, which is super, super convenient that you can choose. It's like my stream goes through the regular one, like my regular line, because I don't want to have any interruptions. And then I have my browsers connected to, of course, ExpressVPN, which is super, super flexible, super, super easy. As I mentioned, it works on all devices. All you need to do is like just drop in your code. There's not even like a login necessary. You just drop in your code and then boom, your device is connected to, of course, your subscription. You have, optional dedicated IP, just service engineered with innovative zero knowledge design, which is super, super cool. It means that ExpressVPN can't even track you. You need to, protect your data, especially nowadays. Now that everything is more and more online, all your data, all your banking. I remember days when my parents were putting your credit card online, it was a cardinal sin,
Yeah.
it was like you weren't allowed to. It's like I wanted to get a RuneScape membership, and back then, everyone was a little bit too afraid of things, but nowadays, fair play. Nowadays, you should be afraid. You should protect your data, especially if you're on open network. Whether you're in a hotel or you're at an airport or anywhere really, it's very important to protect your information because it's so easy to just tap into that if you're on the same network. So I travel a lot. I use ExpressVPN. I mentioned before in terms of how I use it on my computer. ExpressVPN, protect yourself, protect your data. Super, super important. Protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/summoning. That is expressvpn.com/summoning to find out how you can get up to 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/summoning. Thank you very much, ExpressVPN, for keeping us safe and, of course, supporting Summoning Insight.
Exactly. 4 months for free, and they can't see you, Yamato. Turns out John Cena actually back to being a fucking babyface in this scenario. That's such an awkward tie-in because I only watched wrestling about 20 years, but I do know he's a heel at the moment. It's interesting. Okay, actually, one thing I want to bring you back to, though, is let's just do it now. Right, we have to do the top esports struggle session because here's the problem, Yamato. Right, I actually genuinely, people might know this about me. It's like an idiosyncratic detail about me. I hate where people do analysis on like team names, not the players. So I'll give you an example. When people talk about Fnatic and they're like, "No, typical bully Fnatic. They always let you down at this point in the game." I'm like, yeah, but Upset and fucking Mickey X didn't even play in Fnatic in the era you're talking about. Like, what? Like, to me, that's like you're forcing the narrative because it's not the same players, It's Fnatic the org, but it's not like every quality remains to all the players. But the joke is, even though top esports at this point in time, like, I guess Jackie Love's been there quite a long time, but like, Knight left years ago, guys. Like, fucking, they got 369 in the meantime, went off and went to JDG when everything came back, like, except Worlds. Like, you've had all these changes to the squad. They've got Kanavi, who used to be a JDG mainstay. Cream used to be a fucking, or like OMG player, not NIP or whatever it was. No, it was OMG. It was OMG player.
Yeah.
Right? You have all these different players, but somehow Top Esports, the actual brand name, is the most cursed shit in the history of international play, Yamato. Because they do this every time. They always come in as like, hey, they're playing really well in the LPL. Fucking hell, this team's so sick. Imagine if they do X, Y, and Z. Because like I say, there's none of the same players. There's no Tian here. There's no Knight here. There's no fucking, Wayward. There's none of the players that you were hating on the past. Even Mako's gone. They're all gone. But somehow this team did it again. Because I'm telling you right now, sadly, we've been saying this, like, it sounds at this point, Yamato, like we're like the pathetic alcoholic drunks at the bar at like 2 a.m. before they kick you out. Like, hey man, I used to be somebody. We're just like, oh, get away from me. That's why it feels like now when you tell people, Yamato, like, listen, man, you don't know. In the LPL, they were really fucking good. Like, get out my face, you piece of shit. This is why everyone hates us. We're never beating the LPL allegations, Yamato, because I want people to know, if you didn't watch the LPL, this team was really good in the lower bracket. Like, they actually were just straight up not only beating all the best teams, but this is going to be even harder for you to believe if you didn't watch the LPL. They just beat them by pure team fighting too. Like, they could actually team fight their way out of any fight behind, freaking shit start to the game, the wrong lane gets the kill. But holy fuck, bro, that never turned up in this whole tournament. Like, I was watching I even think the match they had against Hanwha Life is a perfect example. Bro, in both games, they had moments where it was close, and they could never just team fight and win. Somehow, like, their actual strength just did not make it to this tournament. Like, I want some thoughts from you on this one, because here's the problem, Yamato. I can't go the other way and be like, the team's total shit, these are all frauds. Like, I did see when I saw the LPL, but holy fuck, it never turned up to this first stand. It's really embarrassing, I thought. Like, they were just kind of shit at this tournament, mate.
Oh, the main thing that stood out that was so different about this Top Esports lineup and the run was that they had to make it all the way through the lower bracket. They beat everybody 3-1, and there was a sentiment of like resilience. It's like to be able to make it through the lower bracket and to be in an elimination round. If you compare it to past Top Esports, it was always like when elimination was up and they played against someone that was remotely competitive, they almost always looked horrible. Especially like last year, it's like you have MSI or even the playoffs. Where they lost, always like the last series that they played within competition was always awful. And I was like waiting for that to happen with Top Esports, but it just seemed like Ohm was just like tapped into the problems. Like 369 began to look like himself again. Jakob the same way. It's like looking back at that Billy.
But Kanavi looked at the LPL, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad, isn't it? People don't know how good this guy is, mate.
And it's like in terms of that resilience and also their draft read, it just seemed like they were in a sound place to do well. And now it's like coming into the international, we just got a lot of the same shit again. It's like first, it's like in terms of where the timing of all the matchups were. It's like in the beginning, it was like, oh, okay, Hanwha Life series. They had some moments they were winning, but Hanwha Life is just that good that Zeka can find Kanavi on Raptors and just automatically like win the game. Look at Viper flowing on Ezreal, that's fine. And then they just smacked Team Liquid around. They made Team Liquid look like absolute shit. And then we had the matchups. It's like the timing there. It just seemed like Top Esports was like, oh, they're gonna be like a very solid second that they can maybe, on a good day, maybe challenge Hanwha Life. Yeah. But then we had the KC series. It's just in terms of like their draft read, so damn disappointing, because like thinking back to the KC series, there was a moment, the game one, where Top Esports were allowed to they allowed Mr. Vladi to get Talia 4-5 when you have Kalista first pick. It's just such a no-brainer. It's like you pull up Game of Legends, you see that it's his top 3 most played. Giving Talia when you're playing Kalista is just so damn greedy. And then the follow-up is like KC was so greedy with picking Leona on 3. And Leona Ivan is such a common combination. And you know that Yike is known for playing his Ivan, and somehow he got it in 4-5. Well, and I'm watching that. And I'm watching that. I'm thinking, it's like, Top Esports, what on earth are you doing? Yeah. And on the same side, like I was worried because KC got away with fucking murder in this series, and they managed to win in the end. But Top Esports, really, really weird prep. It's like playing Karthus. We had Corky mid on Cream. When the enemy is picking Yone and you don't challenge him in the melee matchups, it just seemed like they had a massive identity crisis. And they seem to have just lost the plot completely in terms of what they did. that conversation we had the last time about like we wish we could like freeze time and that 1 week it's like let's say they play the finals in fucking LPL and then the next day the tournament would have started.
Yes.
Probably that shit would have just been better for them because in the in between they seem to have just have completely like lost themselves, completely overthinking the whole lane swap situation because last year lane swaps were very difficult for them because it wasn't super common outside of NIP, of course, regionally, and then when they came to internationals, lane swaps were very difficult for them. This year, lane swapping in LPL, they did it a little bit better, but then in the interviews they said it's like, oh, lane swaps being removed, we invested a lot of time into getting good on lane swaps, but at this point it's like you have these players that are so experienced that they like I thought they would just fucking simply thrive with Kanavi and this bot lane and in Cream in particular at this tournament, but now if I zoom out, I think just the biggest disappointment for me, if anybody, is just Cream. I thought this would be like his breakout tournament. When I rated mid laners, I thought if top piece was going to do something, it would be Cream challenging Zeka because they seem to have such a very similar profile in terms of what they like to play. But Zeka, of course, has this aura about him in terms of being just clutch when it matters and when he gets the chances to play the big games. But Cream was very disappointing, very strange meta read, and even on like the Cream Classics, the melee champions, we just saw so many unforced errors. And it just brings me back to his performance at past internationals like MSI or Worlds, and I always gave him a pass because it's like you're filling some big fucking shoes here and you're competing against some big fucking names. But here at this tournament, in terms of what the mid lane pool is, you are supposed to be, the player that stands out. You're supposed to be the difference maker, but he just really wasn't. It's like the only time that I think Cream looked good internationally was when he played against Genji at EWC. Well, that's fucking Mickey Mouse's shit. Like that shit doesn't matter. So eyes on Cream. Like this is the moment in time where you have an opportunity to break out and actually be a part of the conversation of like elite tier mid laners. But now Cream forever for a long time is going to be just a tier 2 mid laner in comparison to the usual suspects that we see.
No, here's the thing. I'll even give you the angle as well. The reason why I would put a lot more of the blame on Cream specifically is because I'm with you. Last year, you could just do the sort of like, look, it's his first, everyone fucking fails the first jump. Like he went to MSI immediately. Like then he had to go to Worlds. Like these are hard tournaments. People can fail like that. Even some all-time great players have failed. The problem is though, once you've had a couple of those, you expect him to get over it. And also you look at who his competition was. That's the bomber, Yamato. He had actually the role that had all the lack of names. Remember, he didn't have to face Caps. He got to face Vladi this time. There was no fucking Faker or Chovy. It was actually fucking Zika, who's not like the best player in the world or anything. You go look elsewhere, the Honq guy, that was the name of the person earlier, guys, who plays a Flying Oyster that you definitely didn't know the name of and that you all got, you knew it was a Q, but that's all you knew. And then the last one is obviously fucking APA, who, by the way, right now is not in fucking in good form. Like, he's not even the best LTA mid laner, for fuck's sake. Like, he himself gets outshone by, like, the Koreans in his league. So, on paper, if you were Cream, bro, this was your chance to be, like, whether you even win that, even if you come second, you could have been, like, the MVP of this whole tournament, mate. And let's throw this in there as well, Yamato. It's still right in your wheelhouse. You're playing all the fucking Yorin stuff. Like, this is the shit you want to play, even when it's not better, and it's like the strongest picks in the game. But I'm with you. Here's the problem. Even though I will certainly not let Jackie Love get away with it, because I'm a massive fan of this guy, right? I think he has one of the craziest highlight packages I've ever seen. If no one's ever done it, just go and look up Jackie Love highlights. Find the most recent video you can. Make sure it's like a 10-minute video, and just sit back. You're going to see some unbelievable shit that'll, like, you'll actually watch that video, and this is like a sign that you're amazing player. You'll just think, fuck, did I misread it? Is actually ADC the most cracked out role in the game? Because he just does like the most impossible carries in team fights you've ever seen. But I gotta say, the amount of times this guy has also bait and switched me when he comes to international tournaments is crazy, bro. Like, he will just play at like a 9 out of 10 level in the LPL, then he'll come to international. It's not even like he's a 0. It'd just be like a 4 out of 10, a 5 out of 10, just like average as fuck. So that's a bummer, but at least with him, at least he had all the best players in his role. Do you know what? The ADC was actually one of those stacked ones in this tournament. No, here's the problem I have with TS, Yamato. If I had to take one defining quality about the top LPL teams that have now historically had a lot of fails internationally, it's easy. The problem is, mate, they always come to the tournament, and if their read is off on day one, they never make it back, mate. They never recover. I even think to myself, the one rare example I think this didn't happen was BLG last year, because they started the tournament a little bit rocky, but then they put Jun back in and then they switched. All they did, bro, is they did like a T1 themselves. They just went back to comfort. They just were like, right, you know what, Bin, just pick Jax every time you want, mate. A night RE's available anytime you need it, mate. Just pick that up. They just gave everyone comfort. I hate when they do like this, like what you were talking about. They have the wrong read, but they just keep doubling down into it. So you're just giving yourself like ass drafts, and you never, that's the thing I've always given T1 the credit for. T1 has been really good at Worlds at being like, right, smash this glass and bring out our old fucking meta of comfort, because this isn't working for us. Like the current meta, we're going to die to play this. Even if it doesn't work, we have to go to like our, like Kerrier's picks, Zay's picks. Like, T1, the LPL doesn't seem to do that, mate. They seem to come in with some weird thing where they just keep thinking like fucking that like Principal Skinner meme of like, no, it's the children that are out of touch, not me. My read is totally correct. Like they just keep going and doubling down for some weird reason. I don't get it, because we were all glazing the fuck out of Hom when he won the LPL, man. He's one of the greatest coaches of all time. But what is this shit? This is wild.
To follow up, it's like it's such a good point about LPL not being willing to pivot. And if there's one team that managed to do so, it's like Weibo Gaming. It's like Weibo Gaming is always like come into like internationals, and we're like thinking it's like Weibo Gaming is gonna be fucking ass. It's like, oh, look at them play. It's like, what the fuck is this draft? Fucking Silas and Poppy together. It's like they can't play this for shit. And then it's like they're the ones that managed to pivot, and it's just such an important thing to be able to follow like a gut call in those moments. And it was also something that Tabe mentioned. He was like, we were like asking him, was like, what do you think about his competitors, like the other coaches that are on the LPL? And someone that stood out to him was Dana, because he was like, yeah, always at the World Championship, this guy fucks me over. Like this guy fucks me up. So I want to beat him in particular. That's something that like and thinking about it, it's like Weibo Gaming. It's like they come into these tournaments, they're thinking like, the Weibo Gaming is not gonna fucking do shit. And then that Worlds, when they made the finals, they were the ones that were capable of pivoting to the fucking Caitlyn Lux and so forth, and they had like a strong conviction in the read and beat out, of course, Billy with the Shy playing fucking Graves into Aatrox. It's such a crucial aspect, because I think you hit the nail on the head there that Top Esports as a team, it seems like they get stuck in their ways and they tend to just kind of drill their feet further and deeper down. And the moment you kind of have them figured out, it's like the moment that KC beat Top Esports the way they did, it kind of shattered like the illusion. And I was like, oh, is CFO just going to beat them easily? Because they just kind of showed the recipe here. It's like just path into bot, deny them of the melee matchups for mid, and then all is going to be good. Like you can invite the Rumble if you want, depending on who you're like putting in there, and easy peasy. You have the recipe to beat them. I'm trying to think back of like past LPL teams, but usually it's like the same. It's like if we think about like FPX or like fucking LGD 2015, it was also like fucking just fucking utter chaos in terms of what the prep work was. And I think it also brings us back to what is the core strength and weakness of the LPL, is that in terms of how they seem to work in the day-to-day flow, it just seems very, very player-driven. And just because you have so many different teams and so many different players too, certain metas, certain circumstances are going to like invite newer teams and newer players into like the top four, into the playoff brackets. There's always like some teams that make it through just because the makeup of what the meta is in that circumstance is good enough for them to just make it through. And sometimes you send those same teams to the international tournaments and you realize that they were just functioning under very, very specific circumstances. And then the meta shifts, and then all of a sudden, that one or two LPL team kind of looks like ass. But I think it just comes back to the conversation of LPL is extremely competitive when it comes to players being able to peak in certain circumstances.
Right, we'll go to Animal Life at the end, because that's actually the positive. They are the best team in the fucking world right now. But let's talk about Team Liquid, bro. Because fucking hell was this brutal. Like, the saddest thing is, this is also where, like, you're right, the entire schedule just did, like, the fucking switcheroo. Because since they started by beating KC, you were like, remember, no one thought Flying Oyster was doing anything in this tournament, boys. So as soon as TL beats KC, your actual first thought, by the way, it's totally reasonable, should be, we're in the playoffs. Like, that's actually totally logical. In fact, if people don't know at the end, because Top Esports didn't even win any games in the playoffs, Team Liquid won more games at this tournament than Top Esports. The problem is they lost to Top Esports. That's what actually fucked them overall. So give me some thoughts on this one, because I have to say, I actually did think that this team came out of LTA, but they looked a bit scuffed even when they did. Like, they just had a great final, basically. Aside from that, I never thought they was going to be super strong. I didn't expect them to do like a super sick run here, but this is really underwhelming though, mate. Like, again, I'm going to give a lot of praise to Flying Oyster, but come on, Team Liquid. Like, this is the team where, remember, they kept the same lineup. We're supposed to believe you're doing like a G2 and building on last year, and like you're going to level up because you've had time together and your macro understanding and stuff. Like, there has to be something better than this. This is a fail. Come on, this is a fail.
It's Team Liquid is. I think Team Liquid. It just the fact that it made it here has to carry such a great deal of shame for FlyQuest, C9, 100 Thieves even. I think Team Liquid. I give praise to the coaching staff because they managed to hide their weaknesses so damn well. Like in that KC series, they simplified and streamlined the game for Umti. He's playing Nocturne, Maokai. It's very, very straightforward for him to play the game. It was also the timings. Like, I completely lost his mind in that series. There was like a moment in time where I posted a print screen of fucking Nocturne being 4 levels ahead, Umti being 4 levels ahead of Yike, which is just surreal considering how bad Umti actually is, and he revealed some of Umti moments like later on. Like, the biggest pain point for me with Team Liquid and their story is that there is no point of progression for them, in my opinion. I think they have reached their ceiling, and they did so last year at like MSI. I think through spring through MSI. And then Flyke was just catching up to them with the addition of course, Quad and having a deeper pool in the mid lane. Because if everyone remembers our finals, it was just, you had a mid laner in, of course, APA, who was unwilling to play Smolder, unwilling to play Zeri, unwilling to play Yon. And these were champions that Quad was just playing flawlessly. And that was the beginning of the end for Team Liquid. Imagine now in an off seasons, like Team Liquid could have gotten into this year. Imagine they had just River in the jungle instead of Umti. It's like Umti's an import. Like River, I think River would have been so much better than Umti in terms of like what he offers to the team. It's just an example. It's like Team Liquid could have found a better jungler and could have increased their potential ceiling so much.
It's a spicy one. Since they have money, mate, what if they'd gotten Yike? Imagine that, bro. Yeah. Imagine Yike and Core legit. Wouldn't that be fucking insane? That would be nutty, yeah. Legit, mate.
That would be nutty. It's like it's just very, very easy to find an upgrade there. Like, I don't know what kind of intangibles we're talking about here with Umti, but come on. It's like you have a great coaching staff and you have fucking Impact and Core JJ. It's like you have enough intangibles as it is, you have a fucking storage room full of intangibles, so it's not really necessary. I think in that first series against KC, the key thing was, for me, they had a very good read on Tatalia first pick in game number 3. I think that KC didn't have a good answer into it. They matched it with Aries and Zhao, and they won. And then the rest of the series, right, it's like when they played against Top Esports. Top Esports just banned Talia 2 games, Ziggs removed, and then they just made sure that if APA is in a position where he's going to have to blind, he's always going to suffer. They drop into 4-5, they remove, like, for example, Cassiopeia to set up the Silas, and then APA is kind of out of steam, and then you're in a position where as long as your bot lane is playing like even matchups, because I do think Eon and Code JJ are really, really fucking good. Like, they are really, really insane. If they're playing an even matchup, the pressure on them to do things out of the ordinary is just way too high. I think that the Team Liquid's bot lane, very, very good. Code JJ, I think, is fantastic, even though, like, as the tournament progresses, especially like in the How Alive series, it looked kind of iffy, but it is what it is. I'm not going to like put too much, kind of blame for what that is. It just, Team Liquid, I think coming into, I would be very surprised if they win a split again. I would be very, very surprised. I don't think it should be possible. I think that now with lane swaps being fully gone, Fearless being forever, like, this is going to be a very, very big pain point, because we made the point about how, like, I made the point and people criticize this, like, fucking try to fight back, because people just like Fearless because it's fun. But there are certain teams that are going to get completely screwed over by this. And it might not be your favorite team, might be your favorite team like T1 or whatever, but a team like Team Liquid, lane swaps gone, Fearless perma, that is fucking rough. If I'm thinking and I know the year is full Fearless, I am rethinking some of my choices, in terms of how I build the roster. A player like APA is going to suffer in Fearless. A player like Umti is going to suffer in Fearless. And now I think Team Liquid were lucky that they made it so far, that they won, and respect to them that they managed to piece it together. It's always like Spawn's timing. It's like Spawn came out, and then Spawn had something personal where he had to fly back, and then the moment that day occurred, Umti just fucking started running it down again. I don't know if the timing it's surreal. It's so surreal. It's like you can't write a better story in terms of, you know, Spawn being like the Team Liquid whisperer, but I'm tired of this Team Liquid roster, brother. I'm sick of them.
I'm with you as well, because the funny thing is, as much as normally I would bang on APA just because one, he trash talks, or two, I think you do bring it on yourself when you do that. And then secondly, because he's from North America, the North American fans never shut the fuck up about this guy. Like I told you, the second that these teams ever do anything, FlyQuest or TL, you'd think it was like 5 Americans, mate, eating a hamburger going like, yes, sir, Mr. President. Like, you would never believe it was all like, you know, world champion Koreans and stuff carrying these bitches, like, or European coaches, stuff, which it is. So normally I bang on APA, but APA's problems are the same from before. Like, as you addressed, nothing changed. That's it. The guy who really got exposed really was Umti. Because, mate, I actually do think that one of the most underwhelming parts of Top Esports was Kanavi. I thought he could be like an MVP of the tournament. Mate, when he played against Umti, you would have thought he was. He fucking, mate, I was like, he just gapped him so fucking hard. It's ridiculous. Like, the difference in hands between those two players is pathetic. Like, that's the other thing about Umti is, mate, here's what bums me out about him. I would hope, because of how experienced he is in all those Korean teams, that he'd be like a really smart, like, brain jungler. Even then, he makes like weird, like fucking fuck-ups in the game and just dies randomly or just goes way too deep. Like, I don't know. I hate his read on the game, personally. I'm with you. He's one of the players, a bit like APA, where I just look at last year and I'm like, that coaching staff fucking earned their paycheck twice over. Like, they managed to actually do what a great coach can do, which is not only like use the strengths you have, but cover up the weaknesses. The problem is now the weaknesses are just there to see, mate. And I don't think you can cover it up in Fearless Draft. Like, in Fearless, this guy's just going to be stuck in bad matchups he doesn't like, and you're going to have that. It's going to be like, it's like these games you saw, even in the series, they lost the Top Esports guys. Early in both games, they're in the games, but then it just like, they just get left in the fucking rear view mirror, mate, because the players on Top Esports are too good at fighting, too good at accelerating the game, just finding picks on you. Like, this is just sad, because I'm with you. The biggest problem Umti has, it's like my joke about those players last year, where if you're not, it's like the Frescovian MDK is like, look, you aren't Spanish, bro, so your time is limited. Umti, you're a fucking import, bro. If you had that green card, oh, it's all cool. Don't worry about it. You can stay. That's essentially anyone who is from another region who could come to Team Liquid could replace you. And if they did, as you're saying, Yamato, I think this team would get a lot better. I think this team would actually have a chance then. Because I still do see some, like, they do have some protocols in the game. They're clearly not like an idiot team. Like, they have some ideas about how to play. I could still believe KorJJ has a good read on what he's doing and is making good calls. The bot lane is good. I'm with you on that, by the way. There's another thing that'll be underrated. Because they came last place, everyone's going to think the whole team shit. This bot lane is good. They're good players. I even think this meta might even suit them. The problem is, what the fuck are they going to do about jungle mid? Like, I can't even imagine at this point. I'm with you, Yamato. I can't even imagine sending this team to MSI or to Worlds and thinking they're going to do something. Like, in what unit? By the way, they didn't even beat TS here. What Asian team are they going to beat in a best of X? In a BO5 especially, like, you're having MSI is going to be a nightmare for these guys. It's going to be really bad, mate. It's going to be sad.
And to follow up as well, it's like we always praise the coaching staff. We know KorJJ is there, Impact is there. The fact that they stuck with Dion when he was underperforming, and now he's like one of the best Western ADs, if not the best in best Western AD. And it's like, I feel like this. It's like in terms of jungle options, you feel like they could nurture whoever would be just rank 1 on the ladder. Yeah. They could nurture like the next big player. I do think that they have like a team makeup where if they just had like a mechanical genius there, like imagine a world where they brought in Bo, you know, like as an example. I know the Bo experiment is something that like I failed, right? In
but imagine having KorJJ pilot this guy.
Yeah, so right? KorJJ, Impact. You have this great coaching staff. You know that they could have they need firepower. They just needed firepower there, and I think that's just the most like disappointing aspect of it all. It's like the progression of the Team Liquid story just ends with Umti. And I can flip the question too. Imagine Umti was a free agent after 2024.
Yep.
I don't think that any team,
No one's
any
signing
big team,
him. Come on.
no big team is going to sign him. It's just not happening. It's just not happening at all. I don't think any big team, like we talked about Kana going to fucking Turkey. You know, this would be you would go to Turkey. You know,
I don't know if they do it in league. It's mainly like a CS meme, as far as I know, where you go like, "Hey, buddy, you better get learning Chinese," because the idea is like you're gonna have to like go to like fucking China if you're not good at the NBA now. The joke is, if you're Umti, just start learning Japanese now, mate. I don't know which LGL team you'll be playing for, but you will be. Listen, you got two options: learn Turkish or Japanese, because that's your future. Like,
it's
sort of true though. It's sort of true, Umti. You know it, bro. You know it.
And you know, like the reason we are pissed as well is because it's like I like the Team Liquid story. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. We like the bot lane. I think Impact, you know, in terms of lane phase, you could see that he is kind of lagging behind some of these other players like Kana and fucking and Zeus, of course, and that's like a pain point. And APA still, like I think he has like redeemable qualities, and I do think that in terms of where you're at, in terms of like if you need someone that is a resident, you don't have like an impulse or whatever, and this is what you're piecing together, I don't mind sticking with that and seeing how that goes, because he still, I think, was very important in them winning that finals weekend. So like APA, I don't mind giving more time, because I do think, yes, I had like really, really decent peaks, but the peak of Umti is still like, it's just not inting. That is what it is. And I think breaking down the potential of Team Liquid's year, once again, if they manage to accomplish anything, just fucking spawn, take more money, reign over, like take more money, just fucking Steve, just fucking milk Steve dry, you know, because this is a tough project. This is a very tough project.
No, by the way, I agree with you. Here's the other reason why I, unironically, if I'm TL, would just lock up this coaching staff. Because, bro, if I'm actually their competitors, look, I'm probably never going to get Core JJ out of his contract. He's just going to be a TL guy forever now. The person, if I'm like Cloud9, I'd be trying to sign is like their fucking coaching staff, mate. They're the ones that are making miracles happen. Like, imagine give me that guy and have him work with Blabber and some of the fucking Korean studs I've got here. Like, that'd be sick. So I'm with you. They should definitely like double down on the coaching staff. And I'm also with you as well. Like, bearing in mind Umti's an import, we can just change this position, you know. You can go look out there in the world and find someone where it just makes sense. Can even be an angle, like you said. It doesn't have to be the best player. It could be something like just a really mechanically strong player that can be directed by the support and the coaching staff, whatever. But you can fix this. This is still fixable. Because I'm with you. Here's how you know they're fucked with Umti. Because, bro, he even's going to get gapped domestically. Like, he has to go against Inspired, fucking River, Blabber. Like, these players are all better. They're just domestic players, for fuck's sake. Forget, by the way, you saw what happened with Kanavi. Don't even think this guy could ever go against fucking Order again or something. Like, it's going to be that's going to be, in Fearless, that will be a fucking bad day for him in that series. Like, he will get his shit pushed in. No, I'm with you. And then let's flip it, though. Let's go to the winners of the tournament, Hanwha Life. Bro, this is how you know the like sort of KC fan aspect skewed the narrative. Flying Oyster coming out of nowhere. The fact that TES and TL were like up and down. What's mad is Hanwha Life beat everyone in the tournament. And at the end, people didn't even hit that hard. That like the real narrative here, guy, is still the Zeus one from T1. It's the fact that the guy left T1, won his region, by the way, in the rival team, and then now has won an international tournament. Like, this guy is what, first of all, signing of the year, obviously. Secondly, he really is just one that you've only really seen it fully enough. Now he's not in T1 because if you notice, people aren't just giving all the credit to fucking Faker all the time. Like, this guy is so unbelievably good at League of Legends. It's bonkers, isn't it? Like, he actually probably is just the best player in the world, right, Yamato? If I had to pick someone today, I'd probably pick Zeus. He's just fucking too good, mate. What a sick player.
I'm with you. I think Zeus, best player in the world. I think he's so damn complete. It's sad, you know. Like I care so much about the Bin versus Zeus conversation and the fact that Billy shit the bed.
We didn't get to see it, innit? Yeah.
Like I just want to see more Bin versus Zeus. Like that's what fucking top lane is, you know. It's like we're being deprived of this, and Billy with fucking Way is just a big pain point. But Zeus just fucking immaculate. It's like the flaws that it's so difficult to play side lane in T1. It was extremely hard because their jungle and support are very, very unique in terms of how they approach the game. Like Owner, it was one of the junglers that even playing on Vi, he was always fucking scaling. Like his Sejuani had 3 items, 4 items. He would collect all jungle camps, and Korea always together with Gumayusi was just building information on his own. But when that wasn't possible and the enemy collapsed with jungle and support against, for example, the Light and Peanut on side, you could see that Faker was getting caught, Zeus was getting caught, and everyone always from outside pinpointed this as Zeus's flaw. And of course, there were moments where Zeus was at fault, where he needed to wait for information. But the state of mind you're in is that that information will never come. So Faker and Zeus always needed to play with heavy, heavy risk. But now Zeus is playing together with Peanut and Delight, the best fucking, information engine that is out there. They're Google, DuckDuckGo, and fucking Bing in one in terms of all the info that you can get in terms of how they control the map, how they play the tempo game, how they set up tempo traps.
Which LPL team is that? Google, DuckDuckGo and Bing, whatever. It's a good joke.
And and now you see Zeus. He's not dying on side. He's fucking farming. He's fucking chilling. There were moments in this KC series where they were a little bit sloppy, but I never really ever felt like How Alive lost control. It's like that game 1, it was like, oh guys, you're fucking trolling. Get your shit together. Oh, okay. And then they went to the next game and then they just fucking turned it up a notch. It just seemed like even though they dropped the game, they kept full control always. So same against Team Liquid. It's like, oh, we played Quinn, Zyra. That was fucking dumb of us. Let's get our shit together here and just let's send them home. All right, let's send them home. Let's hop into the server. Let's play some regular shit. You want to play Kassadin? Oh, you can do it. It's Team Liquid. Just fucking enjoy yourself. Zeus, I think just cohesively, it's like I don't see any flaws in how he plays. Fearless just seems to be his playground too. It's like the deeper you go in a series, the more exciting it gets to watch Zeus. I think the last year's Worlds forced him to play a very different type of style. And the fact that he figured out how to be insanely impactful in the lane swap meta where everyone complained about players not being able to play carries top. He was playing carries top every fucking game.
He was playing all those Vayne games. He was some crazy shit, trying to get Gwen in there, Camille. He was playing everything,
He was fucking deep frying through and through. Yeah. And now with lane swaps gone, you just know in terms of lane.
He's going to smurf this next split, surely. Surely this is his split to be like MVP or something, mate. Yeah. Why not?
And How Alive, in terms of everything else, it's like Zeka as well. It's like in the beginning, like Delight, Zeka, Peanut were looking kind of ass. We're like, what the fuck? This team is supposed to be good in the beginning. What are they doing here? But he also ramped up. Zeka in the conversation, one of the best mid laners in the world, easily. Delight, I don't think anyone holds a candle to him. And the coolest thing is, it's like Viper is now playing in a team where he can draft in ways that make sense. It was a big problem for them last year, right? It was like that series against Bilibili. It's like, oh, I need to blind pick AD. I need to pick for the matchup. I need to play MF here. Yep. And last year it was like, oh, so Thorin is now in the position where he needs to be more impactful. Yep. That's not Thorin's style. So Viper was always in this position. It's like, should I fucking blind pick Zeri? And he did in that series against Bilibili, and it was complete ass because the matchup was just horrible. And now he can be like, oh, I can pick Ashe 1-2. And my teammate is going to find enough value in the counter that me having pressure early and getting information is going to be so immensely valuable, and it's going to pay off, and I don't need to carry the game. And to see Viper be in that position where he can chill a bit and breathe, God bless, because I think Viper's form isn't even the best ones in his career by far. He's making a lot of uncharacteristics like mistakes, and he's just piss chilling. But I feel like Viper is the one that deserves it, bro. He definitely deserves to be like, hands off, But
this way, the craziest thing is the last year and a half, when, by the way, he's picked up a bunch of his championships to go along with that World some years back in the LPL. The joke is this has actually sort of been one of the weaker periods of his career. I'm with you. He hasn't looked that sick. Also, he hasn't even been as good when he's done those weird picks like the Ziggs picks. It's just all right, He's just not always like the smurfing player. But as before, I'm with you. In fact, even in Hanwha themselves, before Zeka leveled up and when they used to have Thorin, this guy used to have to hard carry to get those games against T1, mate. He used to have to be like literally the best ADC in the whole world, and like his mechanics had to just be like demon mode the whole time. I'm with you. He can actually sort of like have a fucking breather, or even, are you ready? shock horror, he can actually have a bad game and win the game still. Like, this guy hasn't been in that world, mate. He used to play in fucking Griffin back in the day, the Ultimate Chokers. Then he was on EDG, which, by the way, was actually a quite similar team. It was a very, like, evenly balanced squad. But those the first few splits in Hanwha Life were fucking suffering, bro. He was having to be so good. It was crazy. But like, I'm with you. It's kind of like he's reached the promised land now, mate. I mean, the joke is he could actually win everything this year and be like the third best player on the team. Like, it's plausible. It's totally doable. Because I'm with you. I also think last year, the difference with Thorin was you had to be so cynical with Doran's champion pool that it's like you say, you just knew if you're Viper, like, it's like I always say about Razork, like, you can't go by the global meta with these players when you have a scuffed lineup. You have to put them on the champion that they're going to do all the damage and get all the players off on. So unfortunately, it does make you actually quite predictable in the draft. It's like you said, right now, one of the key strengths, we can tie this back in Hanwha Life as a team. The reason why they are just the best team in the world right now is, mate, the balance in this squad in all senses is amazing. Veterans and younger players, fucking people who've choked and people who haven't, people who are fucking carries but can play the weak side, experienced. But that's one of the reasons why I think one thing about the team that I've seen them the whole year is the floor of the team is amazing. Holy shit, this team doesn't go down and play really badly. Like, it's actually, it'd be hard pressed to find when they've even played badly at all this year. Like, they maybe started at the very beginning of the split with some slightly dodgy games. Even then, I actually think by the end, like, the amount of good games they've had is unbelievable. And also, this is another team that's like, they're killing the drafting, mate. They've got so many tools. They've got all these fucking crazy weapons to use in the draft. And right now, no one has an answer for this team. No one has anything for them.
Like thinking about how our life built itself up. It's like when I was in LCK back in 2020, how our life was like a joke. It's like how our life, like their baseball team was also not fucking performing. How our life was viewed as just a joke. And then of course they made the signing back in 2022 to bring in Viper, and then they like collected some pieces from like DRX, the World Championship winning team, and Mowgli, Zeka, and Kingen. And it's like, oh, like let's see how this works out. And it didn't really pan out. But like the patience to fucking strike so damn hard in each and one of these off seasons to then sign Delight and Peanut. They have, of course, Dandy on board from before, and then finally getting Zeus. It's like this has been a project with years in the making, and I believe How Alive is an organization that has a shit ton of money, right? They have a shit ton of money. It's like they are connected to one of the biggest what is called like the families.
Insurance. Chibble, yeah.
It's like the health insurance company is like connected to Hanwha, who are fucking weapons manufacturer. They have everything, bro. They're doing everything, and they have all the money to spend. And this is fucking money well spent, bro. It's like this is a fucking crazy roster with insane coaching staff, and it kind of. It looks good when it works, because there's always that tingling fear of things not working, but the resiliency of this team is there. The range of this team is there. And as long as 3 players are performing, this team is still one of the best teams in the world. And that's what's so scary, because like, even if we go and follow up the conversation, we mentioned Delight, it's like Peanut. I think Peanut should be just, for me, which is a conversation like we should open up, is for me, Peanut is simply the jungle GOAT now.
Listen, he is in many ways the god of Not and jungle.
Listen,
people don't want to hear it, Yamato, because the problem Peanut has in his career, he hasn't won worlds, obviously, but he's won first stand, he's won MSI, he's won loads of LCK, by the way. In LCK, the joke is he's won like 4 or 5 different fucking orgs. It's crazy. No, people forget the resumes of some of these players are really special. Obviously, ideally, you give him the worlds this year or next, and then he could have this conversation for real. But I'm with you. Like, if you look at his, and think of the longevity, mate. This guy on Iraq, was playing 10 years ago, Yamato. He was on like Najin or whatever the fuck. Like, that was a million years ago. Think about all the teams he's been. Rocks Tigers, T1, fucking this squad now. Like, oh, it's crazy.
I am entertaining this conversation because for me, there's only 2 people in that conversation, right? It's like Canyon and Peanut. It's like Canyon has like the highest peak of any jungler for sure, like in terms of how he has played when he won the world championship and so forth. But Canyon has also phoned it in a lot of fucking splits. It's like when he played on Damwon, like the last split was a very, very depressing one. It's like, it was very painful to watch that, because Showmaker Canyon, you just kind of want them to do good. It's impossible to not love this duo, because it's just the greatest jungle mid duo of all time, in my opinion. And and also with Gen G, it's like even last year when they were winning with ease most of the time, until they didn't against How Alive in the finals. It's like it was this reoccurring meme on my stream was like, oh, Canyon, when you play against Canyon, the enemy team is going to get first blood. And I have like these goblins, you know, that are gambling. It's like, was always like putting money on first blood for the enemy team because Canyon is just like sleeping in the majority of the early game. And I think also for this regular split, it's like his laziness is kind of beginning to catch up to him, because last year at least he could be clutch in those big games, pull out the Kazik against Zinzao, you know, be just a fucking gangster, you know, and just pull it off. But now all of that is catching up to him, and I'm just comparing the sheer volume, because as you mentioned, it's like fucking his Rocks Tigers years. It's like his mechanics were nutty back then. I think 2017, I think a lot of fans point to him, because I think anyone who was on that T1 roster with how Faker was performing in 2017, if you didn't win Worlds with Faker, how he performed that year, that's a fucking stain on you, you know. He won the MSI, and then he moved to DRX, the Kingzone DRX, whatever the fuck they were called. One split, went to MSI. I think it just his career, I think it's just so damn insane. And he was just consistently in the conversation of like, whenever he made it to the tournaments, besides maybe like his LGD stint back in 2020, always in the conversation of being just a top 3 jungle.
We're still at Worlds that year. This guy's is an insane floor racer. Here's the thing, Yamato, I know what you mean. The reason why the jungle one's good is because I like the role itself, which is so dependent on teammates. It's not a one that has an obvious person. Like, you go on different qualities. Like, the obvious candidates would be, as you say, Canyon just showed us like hands-wise the best possible. You think of Yankos, the longevity, unbelievable, matched up with people, plays from back. Carsa's had some amazing peaks in the LPL, and obviously used to be a demon on Flash Wolves. Score back in the day was the brain jungler. But I'm with you. If you look at it in the modern day, here's the difference. Here's the line that I think's the banger for Peanut. I'll give you that he's had a bunch of bad Worlds. I actually do think he is one of the chokers, unfortunately, internationally at Worlds. He just had a lot of ways being underwhelming, and he was the guy in like a Game 4 or Game 5 that blew the game for a trophy or whatever. But here's the difference. If you were to say this line, I think this is a pretty good one if you want to be the GOAT of jungle. If you were to just take a random number generator, Yamato, and you put in all the dates of the last 10 years of League of Legends, and you just tell it to spit out a random date in the last 10 years. Here's a random day. This guy's probably the best jungler on that random day. Like, the chances compared to everyone else, they had their highs, their low. This guy, his longevity is just unbelievable, mate. It's actually and remember, we're saying it now like he's just retired. Bro, he's just won first stand. Like, right now, he might actually win everything, including Worlds this year. That's a real thing on the table, and I'm with you. We should start seeding that convo, because already he has a claim to it. But, mate, what if they really do win everything this year? What if this is the team that fucking does the Golden Road with first stand as well and all that? Like, that's going to be unbelievable. Like, at that point in time, like, people are going to have to, like, change their narrative, because, again, you can tell the people who don't care about LCK, you can't... Please stop telling me like Jackie Love and Peanut suck at League of Legends. They in no context suck at League of Legends. What they have is they've had some bad international tournaments. That is something. You can even make the point, by the way, I just gave it up on this episode. I do think they both have a trend of doing this. That is true as well. But actually the key context is, well, the reason we're so underwhelmed is because of how good they are domestically. They're so good. Like, they actually are the best player in the world in their role sometimes domestically. So I look, it'll always be a mystery. I always find it enigmatic when these players have these failures. But I also, low-key, like you're setting up here, I also pull for them to make it eventually, mate. I find it one of the most satisfying things in esports is when the person who's dubbed the choker, who can't win, wins. Because I'll tell you the cool thing, Yamato. This is actually what people forget about in Counter-Strike, the legendary Astralis team that won all those championships like 5-6 years ago. Is because they used to themselves be the chokers. One of the coolest things, if you actually ever get over being a choker, is if it's really gone, because you were so good that's why the choke was a thing. The second it's gone, you might just win everything for like 3 years, mate. You might just become the insanely dominant player. A bit like, by the way, this only happened domestically. That is what happened domestically to Trophy. He also used to choke in the finals. Mate, he hasn't choked in the finals in a million years now. Like, he's just been knocking them off one after another, winning them all. So, same thing with Peanut. When you've had such an amazing career just without Worlds, mate, if you ever had that Worlds, that's just the fucking, forget the cherry, that's just the crown on the top. You are just the GOAT then. Why not? Why not? I think it's a fair comment, mate. It's a fair take.
It's like people are gonna mention other names. It's like Bengi comes up.
Bengi, get the fuck
it's like, but bro, it's like, bro, you can't just fucking play one series in a year. And
that's all you need to know about Bengi. T1 themselves for like 3 years were like, look, anyone not called Bengi can start as jungler, and if it goes badly, I guess we'll make Bengi play. Like, if he's actually the best jungler, you idiots. Like, spoiler, they themselves thought Peanut was better. That's how they were recruiting him. Bro, they thought Tom and Blank were better than Peanut. Case closed. And Bengi, case closed. Like, that's over. Fuck Bengi. Well, how is Bengi still a story? He probably hasn't been good in actually about 9 years or something. What are we talking about?
I'm just covering ground. You know,
Fans,
it's always the T1 players. It's like owner. I want to see owner on a different team, bro. Owner can't join the conversation until he joins a different team, plays with a different roster, and it shows some range because mechanically has had insane peaks, but and he has fucking two world championships and of course another final where he got second. But we need to see owner perform in a different team makeup, you know, to see what he can do. You know, it's the same like if Yaka just stayed on G2 and they kept winning championship for fucking 6-7 years, like it wouldn't. It just, you need to remove them from that context, because like a player like Jankos was fucking everywhere and back, you know, and he was still fucking competing and in conversation of being like the best jungler always, you know. But history is so important. That's why it pisses me off a second. You can win 3 shields and all of a sudden you have the same amount of titles as somebody else. Now Golden Road is different. I don't like these changes, man. I really don't like these changes and people kind of shifting the vocabulary of shit as things move on.
I also agree with you, especially for roles like jungle and support. I think it just really helps if you don't just play with one player your whole career. Like if this guy had already ever played with like Smeb, people would just go, he just carried by Smeb or something. Or if you were like fucking, as you say, Jankos played with Perks and Caps and kept moving around, you know, like all different squads. You think of all the best junglers ever. Canyon, by the way, part of what reignited his GOAT conversation was he playing with Trophy now. Before that, everyone was like, is it his combo with Showmaker? Like that narrative, it's easy to get caught in someone else's narrative, basically. Whereas when you see these guys like A/B tested elsewhere, that's why you know they just cracked. Same with Carson, by the way. He was mega with Maple. He was mega with the other fucking players too. He was pretty fucking good when he was with Knight once upon a time and some of those players. Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe not as good with Rookie, but whatever. We deleted that team. That team didn't happen. That one never happened. That's one of the ones. They took a year off that time. You're like, I don't think your Rookie played that year. Don't worry about it. Anyway. Right? Here's the thing. We're going to go now and talk about some mad T1 drama. But before that, if you're someone out there who wants to make your presence known on the internet, don't tweet at me. Well, actually do tweet at me if you want. I'm not going to read it, but it's all good. What you could do instead is why not have your own custom website? Wouldn't that be cool to have a really polished looking website that could represent you? Well, that's where our friends at Squarespace could help you out, because this podcast is brought to you by Squarespace, where they have an all-in-one website design platform where no matter what type of business you want, they can just quickly get it made. It only takes a few clicks. You can get your domain, and then you can actually have a professional quality website, a real good one that'll grow your brand. And then you can also get all the features locked in there, like getting paid, invoicing people, SEO. So there's loads and loads of features on this one. I'll tell you, way back in the day, funny enough, it's actually how I got into esports. Back in the day, one of the things they used to make you do in computer science class was learn like how to just do HTML basically and make a very basic website. Everyone remembers back in the day, like GeoCities and Angel Fire, those like free website hosting things where you had to have some whack-ass massive like click me bar at the top because it was free to host, etc. In the modern day, you don't want it to look scuffed like that, because if you ever see that, it's like Yamato was talking about in the last ad. People are scared when they see dodgy looking sites, or they're like, oh, am I going to put my credit card in for it? What you need it to look like is you need it to look polished and professional, because it's actually like quality of what you see and how like good the coding and stuff. That's what's going to make people feel secure taking advantage of your services, whatever they may be. So one of the cool things about Squarespace is they have all sorts of different features. They have a special AI design technology where basically it can sort of like take your needs and tailor a specific site based around those aspects, but still like be cohesive and coherent with the other parts of the site and make it all super polished. They have all the services you could want to get paid in one place, where you can like do consultation. You can actually like sell details on your website. You can have a store. They have analytics there, so you can check all that. By the way, that's actually a mad underrated part of having a website, is check things like, where does traffic come from? What actual marketing services, how did they affect, like, did people come to my website? Do people use my social media? Speaking of social media, you can tie all your links into this site so that they can all be fully functional and have videos and things embedded so people aren't scared to click play, etc. It's got everything in one place, basically. So I would say go to the sponsor, squarespace.com/summoning. You know how to spell summoning, SUMMONIG, for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code summoning to save 10% for your first purchase of a website or a domain. Yes, thank you to Squarespace. Again, tell us if you make anything esports related or league related, make something cool. Make an old thing where you do a thing where you actually can come up with fanfics and then you make them in how a Yamato Cannon speech should be before Worlds. That you come up with what he should have said to Team Liquid before, like that fourth day of first stand-ups, like, gentlemen, empty your shit, but we can go through the shit like Andy Dufresne and come out the other side and see you at the beach. Like, anyway, whatever. So that's not bad, actually. Maybe I'll make my own website. Maybe I'll use Squarespace after this to make one. And if I do, I'll definitely use the code summoning and get 10% off. Right. Thank you to Squarespace. Thank you to anyone who uses that. And let's get on with the show. So obviously, Yamato, it wouldn't be an international tournament not featuring T1 if somehow T1 fans didn't insert themselves and cause the most drama. It was like, what? Although I will say, there's another detail that wasn't hit hard enough for my liking. The way you guys, this is where even Dom in his old age has gotten soft, and even he doesn't want war anymore, Yamato. He just wants peace. He wants to just sit on his porch and rock back and forwards in his old fucking, I used to be in curse game. No one even knows what curse gaming is, you fucking bitch. It's been Team Liquid for what, 10 years now. Yes, curse and Dignitas. Like, mate, Dignitas. No one even knows I'm a cutie pie. So anyway, you're sitting there wanting peace after years of endless war. What you didn't hit hard enough was this. This final was the T1 hater ball. It was the two T1 tops against each other. It was Kana against Zeus, while all the T1 fans and fakers sit fucking back home watching. Not only that, it's in Korea. In Korea, T1 tops are playing each other. That's right. Fakers just like, hey, can I get in? And they're like, nah, sit next to a KC fan on the floor outside the law park, you fuck. Like, that's the world we're in. So that is amazing in itself. But more importantly, obviously, T1 resumed the drama, which I can't even believe this is real, Yamato. So let's get into this. It's been announced, by the way, by Joe Marsh of all people, the Western CEO guy, who I've always wondered, we can maybe get into this, what does he even do within their org? Like, he makes it sound like he's like fucking holding hands with the coach and stuff as they make all the decisions. So what's weird is they've messaged that Gumayusi is coming back to the starting lineup of T1. And the weirdest thing about it is the wording makes it sound like he's saying, like, sorry, fans, I give in. I'm just going to do what you want, which is like, what? Like, it's not even like the phrase. By the way, Yamato, remember, this guy's native language is English. There are so many ways you could phrase this that'd be different. You could say something like, after the way the first, I'll tell you what, here, I'll do free PR for Joe Marsh. Get ready, Yamato. Here's what you should have said. You should have said the first split of the year, the LCK Cup, used Fearless and had lane swaps. So we were experimenting a lot internally and in the LCK with what we were doing in our team. And we've been working towards, this is how you do it if you're clever, mate. We've been working towards the idea that without Zeus, we have to adapt our lineup. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a 6-man lineup, and we're going to allow Gumayusi and Smash to compete for that ADC slot. And whoever has it, their form's the best, they will be the starter. And essentially, what you're basically just doing there is you've covered all your bases, mate. You let Smash, in theory, come back in if it goes badly. You let Gumayusi look like he can get into the team. And if he's good enough, he gets in and all the fans are happy. But you don't, and this is key, you don't look like you're a lunatic who just gave in to like a mob with pitchforks at the gate, like, give us Frankenstein's monster. You don't look like you just gave in to them. Whereas instead, in this analogy, it's like the fucking angry villagers came over the hill, Yamato. Give us it, give us Smash, kill him, kill. He is not Guma. I shipped Guma and Kerrier. Kerrier was sad after that game. When you come over, it's like Joe Marsh, like he's actually opened the castle gates. There's a red carpet going all the way up. There's refreshments, lunatic juice, the official drink of T1 fans, lunatic juice all the way up. And then along the way, he's just like, hey, looking for a new truck service? Try Hongq's big fucking truck service, like whatever. Like, what is this? So there's a million angles we can get into, you about where we go. Are we starting with like T1, just putting Gumayusi in for the fan? Like, we're actually doing fan service in the roster of the World Championship run. What are we doing here, mate? Give me some thoughts. What are we doing here?
My favorite line out of all this is, like, this paragraph, I'm just going to read it. I have complete trust in Becker, Koma, and the coaching staff. And after extensive conversations with them, I have requested that Gumayusi be part of the starting lineup. And as a result, he'll be starting when the regular season begins. You just contradicted yourself in the same fucking sentence. And like how you always, as a staff, no matter what, it's like internally as a staff, when you approach the players, unified front. from outside, when you talk internally outside, maybe the conclusion was, for business reasons, we need to put in Gumayusi, and it's hurting our sales, and our revenue is not the same. And right now we are bleeding because Zeus is in our life, and they're winning, and they're stealing all our fans. And if that's the conversation internally, business is business, but you don't fucking say that outside, unless, bro, like he's basically throwing his coaching staff under the bus.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like you would only do this move, in my opinion, if you're planning to let go of this coaching staff, or the management staff, which is complete insanity as well. All things considered, it's like it's fucking coma,
You're gonna like this one, right? There's a really legendary English football coach. He was called Brian Clough, and he famously coached Nottingham Forest, and they won like the European Cup in like the late 80s. In fact, if you've never seen this, there's a great film about him from when he was with a team called Leeds United. It was called The Damned United, and Martin Sheen plays him because he can do like the accent. It's a really good film, by the way. Check it out. It's a good football film. But basically, he had an amazing quote, here's the thing, Yamato. His quote is baller because he was like one of these like Mourinho type geniuses of football. So the idea is, with someone like him, it's like Stanley Kubrick, the director. Whatever they say goes, mate. If they tell you I'm going to do this here, you just go, well, you're a genius. So yeah, whatever your vision is, we're going to empower it. The difference is, for him, this story sounds cool. For Joe Marsh, who isn't an expert genius about League of Legends, it sounds dumb. Because I'll tell you the quote. It sounds like Joe Marsh is even doing this. He just doesn't know it. So Brian Clough had a great quote, right, where he said, Yamato, he said, if I had an argument with a player, we would sit down for 20 minutes and talk about it and then decide I was right. Like, that's what, like, that fucking memo sounds like. That's what the PR statement by Joe Marsh sounds like, doesn't it? It sounds like, listen, I have a lot of respect for the opinions of Becca, Coma. You are talking about the Coma with the with all the world championship. Yeah, just checking. He's like, I had a conversation with them, and at the end, when they told me Smash was still starting, I had another conversation, and I continued it. And at the end, they told me we should start Smash. So I said, let's have a third conversation. Who wants to be here next year? And is Gumayusi playing? Oh, Gumayusi's in. Right, good. I'm glad we all agree. And it's like, what are you? Because even the way that's phrased is like, we had an extended conversation. Like, it's like he just said, you're not leaving this room till Gumayusi's back in the team, and they're like, what? All right, bloody hell. So at this point, what I want to know this, Joe Marsh, what possibly happened in the rest of that conversation? Like, how did you change their minds? Did you just go, listen, Coma, put that whiteboard away, mate. I don't even know what any of that shit is. I just listen to LS. Pick Ivern or something. I don't know. Oh, sorry. That's just something he told me one time. Put that blackboard away. I don't even know what the league tactics are. There's no point trying to convince me of that, mate. You've got to use a better argument than that. And then he goes, let me convince you, though. Pulls out the biggest doobie in the world. Think about Kuma, though. Like, what conversation did he have? Well, I want to know. Like, I want to see the leak of that. What extended conversation ended? By the way, also, why is it not just a conversation? Why are we getting like extended directors conversations? Like, what's going on inside T1? What is this, bro? What is this?
Also, it's not only disrespectful to the coaching staff, it's disrespectful to Gumayusi.
It is.
It's so, like, I really hated how the fans framed it, and now how Joe Marsh framed it. It just makes Gumayusi look like so weak. Like, if he's in a position where he needs to compete and he fought back, it's like, this is fucking Gumayusi. He's been a player that has underperformed and then brought it back together with T1 so many times. Why wouldn't you have faith in that? And Koma is a person that has a very specific way of approaching things and to get the most out of his players. He has a track record of doing this to Faker. He has a track record of doing this to his junglers. He has a track record of doing this, and you hired him to do what? It's like, did you hire him because, he was in T1 in the past and he's won championship, but did you hire him to do a fucking job? And you're completely undermining the process, but at least lie. Yeah, like at least if sales are hurting, whatever. I think it's always, in terms of like fan bases, I've always said the same. It's like fan bases grow large enough and there's going to be crazies. But there's a certain extent of giving power to the crazies.
Yes, that's my problem.
It's like, it was the same. I remember like when Fnatic and Sam Matthews was like responding to like letters that were like written by like fucking crazy Fnatic fans, like responding to this and giving, the crazies power. That's like, as you mentioned, like that's a fucking, the Trojan horse is coming towards your gate and you're like, welcome, let me polish the wood for you, like, welcome. If you fucking take everything that you want. This part is just nuts. Like giving into that is crazy to me. They could have done this so much more tactfully. I really don't see any other angle, but besides that, they you are throwing your coaching staff under the bus, and the only rational reason that could be is that you want the process of re-signing them and maybe like the negotiations to be so much easier, because the public pressure is now going to be all towards the coaching staff, because now the crazy Gumayusi fans are going to be like, well, the coaching staffs didn't want this. Joe Marsh needed to step in and be our hero, and the coaching staff was against this. Fuck these guys. And it's like the only way is that maybe further down the line, maybe they're gonna fire this staff, which is crazy, or whatever. I have no clue. I really have no clue, because from a rational standpoint, if we were here and like, oh, Gumayusi is starting because they believe so, we would sit here and speculate, like, oh, probably the sales were hurting. Oh, they made less revenue. Gumayusi sells jerseys. Smash is not super interesting as a player. They can't do the same in terms of in terms of how big the productions are, in terms of what the videos are and the content. Gumayusi is very well loved, and this is something that we need to do. I guess something similar happened in like when Young Buck wanted to bench Reckless, right? It's like the story was, in the end, it's like, bro, Fnatic is not functioning. It's like he's a star player. He's the one that all the Fnatic fans care about. He needs to be in the fucking lobby. And I can get along with that. And as business, like fucking esports insiders, we can fucking rationalize that. But this is just giving in to all the wrong aspects, and as a PR move is just fucking suicidal almost in regards to the coaching staff.
Here's the problem, though, Yamato, is sadly, I think that's why they even went out of their way to phrase it this way. There's another thing, by the way. Don't ever get lost in this, guys. Orgs the size of T1 have plenty of staff who can, like, look at a PR statement and tell you, like, oh, tweak it like this or rewrite it this way. In fact, oftentimes in these orgs, by the way, the CEO doesn't really write the post. He just sort of gives the ideas, and someone better at writing, someone like me, comes along and writes the copy and knows how you phrase it professionally and make it, and use all, by the way, as you're saying, use all the right euphemisms. Like, you can say the same thing and sub-communicate that you're doing it for this reason, but you would never overtly sort of almost be like, hey, fans, we give in, you're right. So my problem, Yamato, is I think this is done intentionally. I think, like, Joe Marsh, if you look at one of the main things he does, aside from, like, whatever the fuck he does with LS, is he just 24/7 tries to placate English-speaking T1 fans. And this just looks like that is the main goal of this post, is to be like, because here's the other thing, right? If he makes it like you're saying, Yamato, which I agree with, he should do sporting-wise, like, this is our decision. Because one that I agree with you, if Gumayusi plays in the next split, you want to believe, it's like I just said about all those Draven drafts for Calist. They've looked like shit so far, but I assume that you're not idiots. I assume you're doing it because in scrims it's been amazing at some point, some of those drafts, and he's probably smurfed on Draven and be a total I mean, look at the guy's mechanics. I bet he's a complete demon, like sidestep around skill shots and killing everyone and jumping in, flashing in and getting the ult off, etc. But he hasn't done it yet. But because I assume you're not just picking Draven because he likes Draven and fans want it. I assume there's a good reason for that. So similarly, if Gumayusi starts in this next split, I want to believe, fuck, he must have smurfed the scrims, bro. Maybe when the lanes came back and now he plays just carry a 2v2, maybe actually they're the best now. Maybe Smash was just like thriving in that meta, or because of Fearless draft, whatever. We could come up with a million reasons. Right now, we just think it's because fans complained. They just got butthurt, and because the team was completely irrelevant in the split. The one thing you can do today before you play a game is do what the fans want, bring back the player they want. So like for a moment they get to, and also, how cynical is this, Yamato? You do it right after first stand ends where you weren't even present. That even looks like you're just like, hey, remember me? Remember T1? Hey, T1 fans? Hey, we just did something really quickly that you might like. Like, how desperate are you for fucking attention, mate? Like, it's just ridiculous. So my problem is, I agree with you. I actually think it's a really bad precedent to set both for your org and your coaching stuff. But even for like the future, how are you going to deal with the fan base? Because in Joe Marsh's case, he always tries to pretend, bro, a bit like Kometo does, that like they police their community and keep all the bad elements out. They don't. What they do is this, Yamato. They're not lunatics. They don't directly say, hey, fans, get this guy. Because that'd be too obvious. They just sort of do that thing where like they just pretend not to notice that like the lunatic ultras are going to like go and do something mad, or that and they always try to make it sound like, oh, no, it's all, they're just very passionate, our fans. So my problem with this one is it sounds like you've gone out your way to tell the fans, if you complain enough, I'll do what you say. Like, but you're basically saying now is like, you say you've been held hostage. Like, is that okay? Can you stop hating on me now? Can you stop hating on me now? It's like, that should never be the reason. Remember, as I said before, Yamato, you have to still believe if you're T1. We're the world champions of League of Legends. In theory, we know what we're doing. We know how to win world championships. If that's true, and I saw in that interview recently, Joe Marsh was bragging like a motherfucker about having won those worlds and saying about how it sort of doesn't even matter that they didn't win LCK. Well, in that case, trust the fucking people who did that. Trust the staff. Because I'm with you, mate. If the coaching staff didn't want Guma and you think that's wrong, spoiler, mate, you don't come in and take the Guma pick away. What you do is at the end of the year, you sign different coaching staff. It sounds like what you do is you let them do the choice they believe in. By the way, you make them responsible. If it turns out Smash isn't that good, by the way, and you should have had Guma the whole time, then maybe you do fire the coaching staff at the end of the year and you go with someone else. But if you come along like this and cut their balls off and make the decision for them, then what are they even doing at that point in time? Like, let's go the other way. Let's say Gumayusi comes back in now and he's awesome. Isn't this going to like ruin any narrative around Korma being a really good coach? Like, did he not want him in? Like, what are we doing? I feel like this is so messy. And as far as I can tell, the only person happy is just the fan, just the T1 fan that was going to order the truck or whatever the fuck.
Also, Joe Marsh, right? Because he looks like the hero that put back Gumayusi, right? And went over the coaching staff head.
You know what, I'm just going to say it, Yamato. You know my secret in esports? I'll tell you what my actual superpower is. And second I say it, you'll understand it, Yamato, because you'll see it immediately. My secret is I never lie. But my secret is this. I always tell the truth, even when I'm talking shit. But my superpower is I say the thing that's true, but it's really hurtful. It's true. It's sort of my superpower. So my problem in this particular scenario is like, bro, what are we even doing at this point in time? Like, what like at this point in time, Joe Marsh is just a fucking... Every time I see it, I'm just going to tell you, and once I tell you this, you'll never be able to see it. I just think of like that character from fucking, what's he called, from Shrek, Lord Farquaad. You know that little king guy? Just think of him every time you hear Joe Marsh talk. That's who he should be represented by, like that, hey, Shrek, like the fucking asshole guy with a massive head. Like, I don't get it, mate. Because what I don't get is if he just chilled like a businessman, or if he just was really professional, it'd be fine. But if you notice, like I say with this statement, he always tries to make it sound like, you know, like him and Faker are deciding everything inside the league team or something. Like, well, what have you got to do with it? You're like some Western CEO guy, mate. And as I just said, listen, I've always actually built the case that I think Korma's a little bit overrated because he had Faker and he won all the championships, you know. But bro, he obviously knows what he's doing. He does have a fucking unbelievable resume. He even just won you one of the worlds now. Like, I would trust this guy. He clearly has his fucking head screwed on. Like, and as I say, if you don't like it at the end, fire him. But trust his decisions now. Because if here's the obvious thing to say, Yamato. If fucking Korma hasn't earned the green light yet to make his own choices in T1, then by definition, no coach ever can. Because no one could win more than this guy. He's won every LCK in fucking worlds. Like, if he doesn't get the green light, who does? The fans, apparently. Apparently, we're actually doing Twitch plays fucking LCK GM. Brilliant. Okay, awesome. Nice one. Well done.
Just there is also, you know, with this PSA, but there's no winning in the aftermath.
No,
if Gumayusi underperforms, it's like, oh, the coaching staff didn't believe in him, they didn't put him in early enough. If he if he performs well, it's the same thing. Like everyone, like I just know the reaction will be that everyone's gonna call for this coaching staff's head. This just never gonna stop. It's never gonna stop. Whatever comes out, whatever gameplay comes out, it doesn't matter. And it's always it's weird how you know the crazy, so to speak, they extrapolate whatever they want from whatever circumstance. Because to think back to T1 and the result, Gumayusi was heavily underperforming. He wasn't playing well at all. Smash came in and he played really, really good for what is going on in the server. And then they could have won that series against How Life, and esports fucking history for what it is this year would be completely fucking different. They took How Life to 5 games and they were in an extremely winning position in a draft that doesn't make any sense with the fucking Zoe Akali Draven situation where they did the final Nash push against like instead of they could have probably ended if they just block a Momo Q with Skarner, and if they played that situation a little bit better. But the thing is, I don't even think if there was a world where T1 made it against How Life, and let's say by that extension, let's just theorize a world where they would beat Genji twice, right? And make it all the way to the finals and play first stand. I think even in that circumstance, people wouldn't be satisfied with Smash and the choice. They wouldn't be because you know, first the conversation was that the format is shit, and that I completely agree with. The fact that T1 and How Alive played a qualifying match, and there wasn't like a game between Nongshim and fucking T1 to qualify into the top four was atrocious, really, really bad. Everyone agrees with that. But now it's like, oh, T1 made 6th place with Smash. Is this the standard we're setting? Is Smash 6th place? Is what we're happy with? You put in Smash to get 6th place? Is this acceptable to you?
Right.
Just removing all the context and then flipping the narrative to just make sense to whatever delusional view that you have. And it's like Gumayusi fans, I get it. You want to see Gumayusi play, but there's just no winning from here. There's simply no winning at all. Like if someone gave me this task, it would be so easy. It would be so easy. It could be like, oh, Gumayusi performed good in the scrims. Smashing him or bouncing off each other. They're helping each other improve, and they're pushing each other to new limits. Fearless, super exciting. We've had success with 6-man rosters in the past, and Gumayusi is performing better than ever before. And Smash is also improving with the squad. Like it's so easy to make everyone look good. It's so easy, but they just decided to make everyone look bad. Besides, as you said, the fans are not happy, and Joe Marsh looks like a hero with the cape, but. I like when we got that question, it's like how does Joe Marsh look like from what do we think about his work? And I do think from a CEO position to care in terms of the PR, to set your hubris up, like to feed into your own hubris, that doesn't make any sense. Like that's the last thing that you want, you know. It's like to play a chess game about ego when the pressure is obviously on the players and the coaches, and whatever pressure on you should be above that. It's like silent CEOs are silent CEOs for a fucking reason, because the PR game doesn't fucking matter. You're at the top of the food chain, and sure, maybe things push comes to shove, and maybe you get replaced by your board, but those are the people that matter. And if your board is sitting there thinking about fucking, public opinion about you, you're screwed for other reasons. That's why I think this silent CEO is the most common way to do things, because everything else just seems like an ego play. I think there's certain people that maneuver it well, like for example, Papa Smithy steps in once in a while, Steve steps in once in a while, but it's very often just to shield the players and to shield the team and to make sure that the pressure is off of them. But this is just a fucking 360. I'm gonna put all the pressure on these guys, and unless it's like some brilliant chess move where he wants to re-sign all of these guys for no fucking money because they're so fucking hated on in Korea, then maybe he's that ruthless. But I just doubt that's the case.
I also hate the way this is phrased, Yamato. Like if I read this part here, they say, when we began planning for 2025, our intention was to maintain a 5-man roster. However, as the team prepared for the LCK Cup, the coaching staff made the request to test out Smash. And during that time, he had shown a strong performance. Right? It's the next sentence that blows my mind, mate, because the next sentence needs to now explain how he either isn't good enough anymore, Yamato, or Gumayusi's better, and it doesn't. The next sentence just goes, with that said, the decision was made he will remain on our LCK roster for the season. What? Like, what you've essentially just said there, I'll just rephrase it, is the coaching staff said Gumayusi wasn't good enough for us to just use the 5-man roster, so they said, can we use Smash instead? And he was playing really well. With that said, he's now just a 6th man in the roster and Gumayusi's back. Like, but why? Like, there's no reason given. And even the worst thing about it is this next part is absolute nonsense, mate, where they say, we are confident in his growth and believe he has the potential to develop into an exceptional player. Well, how would he do that, though? He can't play. Remember, he hasn't done it. This is the weirdest thing, Yamato. They're almost implying he did something wrong, but they're not saying he did anything wrong. And my eyes tell him he did nothing wrong. What's funny is I'm not even a Guma hater. I just think the Smash guy showed so much potential. I don't think that's the piece I take out. You know what I mean? Like, maybe what I would have done, by the way, this is the obvious thing as well, is, bro, I even feel like there's an obvious time to bring Gumayusi back, which is we're just about to go to a no-lane swap meta where we're using Fearless again. Surely eventually there'll be a series where Smash just looks bad in a BO3. Then you can bring Guma in and go, like old school Korean style. You don't have to make it like you promise he's going to be a starter. You bring him in for the one game or the one series, you bring him for game 2 or game 3 when you lose the game 1. That's like the classic Korean way to do it. And then, by the way, if Gumayusi then smurfs that game, easiest transition back ever. But instead, you've done this weird thing where, like, I have to say, the person I feel the most suffer was obviously Smash. What did he do wrong? Like, I even now think to myself, if he's really just going to sit on the bench and not even play, this guy should be on like fucking Fear X or something, mate. This guy's really good. He's like, actually, he showed me real potential. Like, I think there's loads of LPL teams would love this guy fucking tomorrow. Yeah. What's he done wrong? I hate that. I hate the messaging, mate. It sucks.
So I don't know, man. It's just the aftermath of this is so poor because you can't walk back anything. You can't walk this back, and the strain that the coaching staff will be under, even the strain that Smash was under, is just extremely unfair, and just is going to be a very, very painful road for them. It's an element at play, of course, with being in the best, the biggest org in esports, right, in T1 and the biggest team and so forth. But there's just I don't know. There's no winning. There's no winning. It's just such a dumb mistake. I can't get over it, man. I just can't get over this PR statement. Not at all, man.
Especially because, to me, it just shows this. T1 fans, you have no eye test, bro. That's a really promising player. That, like, the reason why, if you're a T1 fan, you should also want him to potentially be in the roster is, remember, yeah, for now, Gumayusi's signed, but you don't know in the future. Maybe, like, 3 years down the line, Smash the star player of T1 and Faker's retired and he scouts the mid laner or something. Like, that could even be a real thing. Like, anytime talent comes to your org, you want them to stay if possible. I mean, my joke would be, can Smash play top lane? That's just a mean joke to Thorin at that point in time, but whatever. You like top lane, you like off-rolling, mate.
You know, the additional layer, I think, a very, very big part of, you know, the delusion in the fan sentiment is that they are under the impression that these guys haven't been under extreme amount of pressure.
I know.
These entire like 4 last years. It's like if these guys didn't perform and didn't win, they would be out. They would be fucking out. And now they had an option in Smash, who performed well in scrims, to execute on. It's like it's not fucking circumstantial. Everyone like everyone always, you get the most sanitized version of this team. But I can assure you, bro, like they were exploring every fucking option when this team wasn't winning LCK, not winning MSI or whatever. Them winning Worlds was always the fucking saving grace. It was the saving grace. And these guys are under extreme pressure all the time. Having someone to compete for the role is fucking just another layer of pressure that Gumayusi is fucking very, very accustomed to. He's been on fucking T1. He did the same to even get into the roster with fucking Teddy. And it just paints everyone so weak and frail. And it just comes back to the same thing.
Imagine if you did the same logic, right? Remember, Teddy was a player who'd been in like semis of MSI and Worlds, and he's fucking won LCK. By that logic, Yamato, you can never bench him for Gumayusi. Gumayusi's nobody. He's just the brother of some StarCraft player. That's what you're all doing to Smash now. You're actually saying, for real, like, you're just some challenger LCK. But first of all, he was the best player on that team. Secondly, he looked really good in Challenger. Thirdly, are you not watching the rest of the league? Are you not watching some of the amazing Challenger players like Siwu and stuff who've just come up now? Like, everyone in the other orgs is loving those because we know that, by the way, the joke is they are the next Gumayusis. And by the way, let's just rewind a second, Yamato. We both watched his career. Gumayusi, when he first came in, was not the fucking player he is now, mate. He took years to get into that. I think Smash looked amazing in his first split. Like, actually, what a fantastic sort of debut. It even looked like they brought him in, like, the coaching staff looked like they made him comfortable. They allowed him carry picks. Like, that's also the bomber for me. You were saying about Korma. Korma also, think about this, as much as you might not like the Dora move, if there's anyone reintegrates different top laners to success, it's Korma. He's gone to like Worlds Finals with like 4 fucking top laners or something mental. Like, this guy's unbelievable at working with him. So you got to give him the fucking green light. Give him the key and the green light and just get out the way and let him do what he's going to do. He's earned that. He has earned that right, mate.
You know, in terms of how this year has panned out, you lose Zeus, which is, well, you should have given him a blank check. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And as a continuation now, it's like now the whole Gumayusi situation is going to be tarnished forever. And now the transition into a post-Faker era, like what do you do? What do you really do? It's like, it's going to get so weird as things move on, because now you have tarnished the whole conversation about Gumayusi. You don't have Zeus, and we have no fucking clue now how everyone is going to react to this, because now they managed to play the PR thing with Doran super well. He was very, very welcomed by the T1 community. They were doing like the streams, playing different games. everyone, incorporated Thorin to the process, and they managed to sell that super, super well. Obviously they're not saying it's like, oh, we tried to get Zeus and he's way better than Doran, but now Doran is here and we are just accepting. No, they were talking about it, selling it super, super well, and that's what good PR is. Doran was incorporated, and T1 fans were accepting of that, and the fuel was hated towards the agent of Zeus. But this is just, I don't know. It's so bad. It's so bad. I don't know, bro. It's just speed running, just fucking tanking your own fucking stock here. Like, it's crazy. Like, if this was a public fucking company, bro, this would be a fucking red day. It would be a bleeding red day, bro.
Oh, and by the way, just to actually stick the dagger in and then sprinkle all the salt in the wound, let me just point out as well, I'm not even trolling when I say this. I mean it from my heart of hearts, and I would pass a lie detector if I was forced to take one. I actually also think, unironically, if they had have signed Zeus, knowing how it worked out, they'd probably be the ones winning teams first stand now. They'd be the champion. They actually probably would have the number one team in the world. I'm not even trolling, guys. Like, I actually think not only has Zeus looked amazing, but you think about the impact he's had on the Fearless draft. You look at how weak a lot of the other top teams, bro, they actually have completely entered that offseason, sadly. They just fucked it completely. And even worse, you gave one of your biggest rivals, the guy that's the fucking, by the way, at this point in time, is just that's what I'd say about Zeus. I think he's the most irreplaceable player in the world. Before, the irony is this, Yamato, everyone would have said that's Faker because of the shot calling and the leadership. I always say this, cause Faker isn't like the most cracked mechanically. He can only do those things when he has the base of the other good players, though. That's why the Dora move was always such a killer. If you just want one player, like if we're doing a draft tomorrow and we all start our teams, totally fine to take Zeus number one if you want me. Listen, you could also take Chovy and Knight, but if you want to take Zeus number one, that's a totally legitimate take. That's why it's going to go down as one of the greatest signings of all time. What an amazing offseason. Yeah.
Then also think about all the money, bro. The ZOV, FGK, ABCD, imagine how much money they lost, bro. The revenue that they lost over this, bro. It's like, this is...
And they'll never get over, even though obviously it doesn't work because technically it's supposed to be Z or FGK. The problem is the second they signed Doran, everyone did do the reshuffle of the thing to make it spell out dog fuck, because it's like, that's almost the most cursed part of that roster, isn't it? Like, I know. You can't win, guys. You can't win. You can't win.
Interesting development, bro. I'm excited to see the aftermath. Like, I haven't even read the comments on that.
I have another question for you. So another question is this. We've addressed this many times before, but it's one thing I did notice. Bro, this is another example at the first stand. League of Legends is just Valorant now, bro. It's just carried by core streaming. Like, people don't get it. Core streaming was supposed to be a cool, like, addition to the fun. Like, you have, like, 200k views, and you add, like, 50 from this guy. And then the theory is supposed to go, Yamato, that, like, you're not actually, like, cannibalizing your main viewership by having the core streamer. He's bringing his fans that otherwise might not watch the game, or they'd watch him stream if he streamed instead, right? Instead, it's the other way around. We really have become like Valorant, where, like, the big core streamers are just it. Like, people are going to KCorp's stream, not the main strand. I know it sounds whack, because it must suck if you are, by the way, like Shocks and Law and fucking the best commentators in LEC and all this. Amazing talents, by the way. Funnily enough, where KCorp himself used to ply his trade. But right now, KCorp's stream basically is the main broadcast if you speak English and you watch League of Legends. And remember, he's not even fucking part of LEC. In fact, he's actually an NLC fucking owner at this point in time. Like, what do you think of this aspect? Because he did it again, mate. His numbers were just carrying the tournament again.
That is, it just seems like, from Riot's point of view, if you're pinching every penny, right? It's like, in terms of, like, the co-streamers are the biggest bang for your buck because you don't pay them shit. It's like they are running the broadcast, they're entertaining people as they go, and the analyst desks are just an afterthought. It's like rare that's the main focus.
Yes.
Between the breaks. Not like often the co-streamers just do whatever. They react to news. They do things too, of course.
Yeah, it's more interesting. It just is. And casual.
And in terms from like a business perspective, it's just like proof of concept as to why these like the LEC, for example, is like, we are going to just remove more and more funding because it's not a necessity. And this is just how it always works. It's like LEC was peaking when they did have creative freedom and they were allowed to do things differently, when the finals were being played in big arenas. Because I can imagine from the CSGO side, it's like in terms of the analyst desks that happen because they're happening in like big venues, the energy is completely fucking different. It's like here we had the LEC finals over there, and then of course we had first stand in the LCK arena, no opening ceremony, no money involved at all in terms of making it into a fucking spectacle. And I can imagine, maybe like you can confirm this, is like on the CSGO side, it's like at the fucking analyst desk, you have the big fans behind you, you can play off the fans.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
actually on CS, I've done like what Monty did with that famous Fnatic versus Coup one, where he made fun of the fans, like when they were all booing him, and he was like, "Yeah, they're shouting Coup, Coup, Coup." I've done that with the crowd a million times, mate. Where you make fun of the home. Basically, it's like wrestling. You're just the heel. No, that's one of the best parts, mate. Is like feeling connected with the audience and being able to like have a feedback loop and raise people's energy. But you're right. If you do this, you just feel like you're just like some side shit. You're not even part of the show.
100%. It's like, and at this point, it's like it's too far gone. You know, I think it's just going to move more and more where the analyst desk talent and the casting talent and so forth will just be a second thought. And then the leverage is in the big co-streamers. It's like KCorp now. Like I would be very, very curious to see the impact if he stopped co-streaming in terms of how much viewership would actually go back to the main channel. Because I don't think it's the majority of the viewers as well.
I'll give you a more cynical one. I implied it, mate. I'd like to see him just cast against the tournament, bro. I'd like to see the tournament. Here's what I'd like to see. This will never be allowed. I'd like to see someone like first stand happen, and at the same time, KCorp will just be like, "Oh, we're gonna have Vitality B play against Lolesports on stream at the same time." I want to see how many viewers go on his stream, mate. That'd be an interesting one for you right there.
Yeah. I was like, bro, even looking at NLC now, bro, like the ghost streams, it's like they're better viewership than fucking LTA, bro. It's like it's completely crazy to think about. Where NLC has, they probably have the budget, my food budget as their budget. You know, it's like it's completely crazy to think about. And I think from Riot's perspective, it's like everyone remembers. It's like last year they laid off a lot of fucking LEC staff. It hurt the product, and then it's like, oh, look, our viewership went up. Our decision is cool, and it's like, oh. I just imagine like the suits in those meetings in the back room are just like, guys, look, our viewership went up. We don't need all of this LEC stuff. And it's like, oh well, nobody's
big cigar. Who the fuck's this Kometo? Get me another Kometo. Like, where's the Shibai guy from a few years? You know, you can just imagine some wealthy industrialist boomer guy, can't you? That doesn't know any. He's just looking at graphs and pie charts, mate.
It's fucked because on the flip side, if you think at it from Riot's side, it's like if they wanted, there's zero incentive for them to make the co-streamers unhappy by ever, like if you ever push them out of your game or make them unhappy, you're going to fucking bleed so hard. And by the way,
if they chose to, they haven't done it so far, they have a lot of power too. Like if you are a Kometo or a KCorp and they ever fuck with you, you could absolutely get your fan base to go fucking, like a la T1 fans, to go mental on Riot. And that will have an impact. Remember, Riot doesn't like people flaming them, especially not thousands of people. Sure, I'm with you, mate.
And also,
A lot of power.
Like Riot said, only the winter's gonna be fearless, and based off of fan sentiment, they switched it to the whole fucking year. Like the fucking fan sentiment is everything, and it's heavily carried by the co-streamers. And
it's like that meme, you know, the meme everyone loves, that one, like who would win? You know, like the Avengers, or one coin flippy boy with like Thanos or some shit, right? It's like one of those ones. But here's the meme. Like, first of all, KCorp in real life is built like that fucking driver guy. Who would win? Like the whole like $1 million Riot broadcast setup with Striker Project, hosted elsewhere, remote things, the best production in the world, augmented reality dragons, or one alt cancelling for my mid lane role swap jungler, KCorp. Los Ratones. Like, why is he winning? Why is that beating all of you? What is this? I actually feel like that fucking, what is that? Oh, it's that moment in one of my favorite films ever, Yamato. Have you ever seen the Christopher Nolan film, The Prestige?
Yes.
It's mega, innit? I like that line. This is what I like to imagine someone in an LEC office somewhere on the main broadcast is saying. They're watching KCorp just sitting, like almost like old local, like, rats. And then they're just going, why can't you beat him? Why can't you outthink him? You know, in the Prestige where he keeps saying that, like, why can't you outthink him? Like, that's what they want. Because what is he doing? Like, they must have no clue what he is doing to beat them, bro. Because really, it's just him, just like fucking smurfing in his chair, just talking shit. That's it.
Even if Riot just fucking, bro, even if they said, okay, we're gonna bolster our broadcast and we're gonna defeat him, bro, what's the point? There's no way. There's no going back. There's no going back because investing into that makes no sense. And I think the investment will be less and less. And I think the only way is what we talked about the last time, bro. Fucking those events. You gotta fucking put together events where people can act and be a certain way in person because you remove the magic. And when you remove that magic of the grandeur of matchups, then the proximity to whoever you're talking to is what people are going to like just fucking gravitate towards. You see that in every fucking space. Like even now, like if you look at the fucking like the space in terms of how like people engage in politics, it's like the streamers. It's like people want proximity to whoever is doing the commentary, and that's how people just consume things nowadays. It's like it's a massive shift in that direction, and being able to write and participate in a community real time, and also in your mind have access to the person who's broadcasting. That is just what it is. Like, we're gonna move to a point where it's gonna be we're gonna have virtual reality rooms, and you're gonna be in the same room as a streamer. You know, we're gonna get to that point. It's gonna get parasocial as fuck. People just need to wait for it.
By the way, another thing as well, I have to say, is another reason why, like, here's the thing. If you only care about numbers, in theory, you should just embrace this and go, right, the future of esports is just massive core streamers getting fan bases. Listen, that's really good for viewership. And in terms of, by the way, for their fan base, it's amazing. One of the reasons I don't want that to just be the future, though, Yamato, one of the reasons I don't want them to ever get rid of, like, real broadcast desks and neutral hosts and commentators is because that's the professional aspect of esports. Like, first of all, I can't actually. The reason you need real commentators, Yamato, is, do you know how absurd it would be if the only stream was KDROs with no commentary? Like, I can't have like the greatest clip ever in a final just be someone going, "Oh my god, he's smurfing! Oh no, what are you doing? He's inted!" Like, that can't. I have to have the real commentary, for fuck's sake. Like, that's essential for the memory. And then also, you're not going to get the proper narrative context if you have someone do that, because KDRO is playing a character. Also, by the way, he's playing up to his fans. Maybe his fans don't give a fuck about, I don't know, Flying Oyster or Top Esports. Where we need people on the broadcast, though. One thing I've always appreciated about the broadcast is, if you actually look, even though we on this show talk about people who don't watch the LPL, there'll always be someone on a Riot broadcast who is like an LPL guy, like an Oxcasts or fucking Dagda or something, and they'll always fight for that corner. Or Emily Randall come and she'll know. The joke is she would have known about Junjia or something like that and could do a draw on my life or whatever, you know. You always need those people to represent all the best parts of the tournament and not be too biased. Because I've always thought, here's how you have to use bias. Bias is great, mate. Bias is basically like your opinion. It's the things you think. It's the things that you're pulling towards. What you do is you want that, but you want to offset it. So if I'm going to be here and I'm going to tell you Rookie's the best, then you want the guy who says Faker is. And then you want the guy who thinks Trophy can be the best. That's what you want for the conversation. That's what's going to make it great. So I do think, even if the numbers are awesome for the core streamers and Kometo was there, and if a buy came back, it'd be even better, and you'd have all the fucking N8 double lift, etc. The problem is you still do need a real, like, professional sports broadcast, in my opinion. You don't want to lose that, because I do think you would be missing something in history if it was only, like, I can't, in the future, it can't be like, hey, check out the modern day version of the Z versus Z. Who do you want commentating it? Double lift or KDRO? Like, can I just have real commentators? You know what I mean? Like, I'd actually rather have neither, if that's all cool, okay with you guys, if that's all right.
No. I fully agree with you. It's definitely essential. There's too many casticles that are just so crucial, and it's just. I think it's important to take a step back and recognize, like, what we actually lose in the process. It's the same the conversation that I've been fighting for in the conversation of Fearless. Because now we're moving to fucking full Fearless full time. It's confirmed. Chibis was fucking leaked it, and now it's just going to be there. It's very, very difficult to walk back, and you are going to lose precision, which seems to be something that fans don't really care about in general. They really, really don't care, and we're going to have less of like legendary moments where a champion is represented with somebody. It's like when you think about champions and their world skins, It's like it's always something extremely iconic. And sure, there's going to be iconic moments with Fearless too, like we had this year with Olaf locked in Game 5, or like, let's say, that Gwen game. There's definitely moments that Fearless is going to bring through too, but there's definitely like a loss of quality that is going to occur with Fearless. And I think it's the same thing if co-streamers are going to be like the only thing that is there. I'm with you 100%.
A problem you're going to have with the format and the course in terms of the Fearless change is there's two factors that play out here. One, it takes fans a long time to understand what's bad about a format because they're just seeing the change. They're seeing the good. I'll give you a quick analogy. Anyone who's ever played an FPS game like Counter-Strike knows that it can be really addictive in the short term to change your mouse sensitivity. Because what will happen, Yamato, is I'll give you the obvious example. If you use a really slow old school mouse sensitivity, like a big mouse pad, well, if you put it up, what you'll find is early on, because now you've got a fast sensitivity, you'll get a bunch of like flick headshots and you'll be like, whoa, I'm way better, bro. I should have been on this years ago. But what'll happen is if you play over like that for a month, you'll realize, yeah, you get the flick headshot, but now you're not as good when you do like the slow tracking, which is what you used to use the big mouse for. By the way, vice versa. If you play with your wrist, like Quake style, and then you go to the big mouse pad, you're going to be like, oh my God, my control's so consistent. Yeah, but now you're not going to get that crazy Twitch 180 rail. So the point is, early on, you're always going to see the positive part of the change, and you're going to like not realize like the total cost, like what is the sum at the end, the plus minus. And then secondly, I actually think in Fearless it's going to be even more delayed, Yamato, because if you notice how people analysed this last split, which was Fearless in all the regions, they never ever stopped and said, wow, people are having a hard time adapting to Fearless. They just did the usual, like, they all suck in draft and this player's a moron for picking this champion. Like, I think sadly that kind of draft critique will hide the fact that Fearless is a bit scoffed for more than just a split, mate. So unfortunately, I'm not too sort of positive about it. Like, look, I'll accept it if it's just the way League is. Same as with lane swaps. I don't like to watch them, but I do like what they do in the game. So whichever way it goes, I'll have to adapt. But I do think it sucks because I think, sadly, all you're going to get now is everyone's going to say it's awesome to have Fearless and they're going to flame the fuck out of everyone. Because think about this last split. You could really believe, Yamato, that in this last split, every team except the champion of each region were morons. That was the way it was presented. Like, G2, what are you drafting like this for, you idiot? Gen G, like, oh, you got out drafted by Henry Life. You must not even know what you're doing. You morons. Like, everyone's treating them like they're all bombs or something, here. Like, the problem is, I think it's like the hardest split probably ever to play in League of Legends history.
Yeah, 100%. I like even going through all the finals. It's like Gen G Game 5, really great point. They invited the Gwen, right, with the Owen Blind. Like G2, we had the fucking Thresh Ergot fucking cocktail that they threw in Game 3, which was an utter mess. And quality of League of Legends has definitely, without a doubt, it's been losing. And it's like always the argument that gets thrown in my direction is like, well, Yamato, these guys are pro players. They are being paid to play the game. They should know how to play champions at the highest level. It's like, yeah, but bro, they're playing against pros. They're playing against other pros. There's layers to this fucking shit, man. It's like
you and me. Yeah, listen, they'll donk on me on that. Bro, even like Caps sometimes has a pick he can't play. Like, he's just human. It's human, isn't he? I know.
It's insanity, man. It's like there is a very contextualization to what it is. But it's like I've come to terms that as an entertainment vehicle, there's a wide spectrum of how people just fucking engage in it and watching it.
Disclaimer.
And it's like, bro, it's the same. Like how I view it, you know, it's the same. It's like when I grew up. When you were on the sofa, and you're like, why the fuck didn't he pass, man? I can score this shit. But now people have a megaphone, bro. Yeah. It's in Twitch chat, it's on Twitter. It's just, oh man, I could have made that pass. This guy misses his shot, dumbass.
I've always said that's actually why I don't read the replies now. Because I actually thought this too. I did a video match like maybe 5 years ago about this. I realized, wait a minute. But that is appropriate for fans to talk about, Stu. By the way, even this T1 discussion, the idea that a fan would be like, hey, bring bloody Guma back. That's exactly what you would say in a bar if you were like watching the Premier League. Like, hey, get rid of fucking Arteta. What you do? Get a striker in Arsenal. That's exactly what the convo you are. And by the way, you want people to have those convos. The problem, like you're saying, is in this analogy, it's like the people playing the match on the TV can hear you as well. Like, and they're like, what? And in this analogy, I'll give you the best one of all. In this analogy, KC fans, they're just that one World Cup where everyone turned up with vuvuzelas. If you don't, Dom, look that up, mate. That's a fucking bagger reference. That's straight fire, mate. That's actually straight fire. The Vuvuzela World Cup was the most cursed one of all time. That was the one that made you hate crowd mics. You know, all you hear the. You're like, oh, please stop it, please. Please.
The World Cup in South Africa, right? That's fucking.
It was bad, man. It was bad.
This shit was good. I remember that shit, man.
Right, it's time for the final segment of the show, which is, of course, the viewer questions, not the Twitch viewers. Obviously, logically, it could never be the YouTube viewers. I can't, see through time what you post and then ask a question retroactively, can I? I just seem like I read your mind. Or maybe what I do is I push thoughts into your mind that battle with your own intrusive voices that make you just bash on the key button for bot the fans. So anyway, the way you ask questions is you subscribe to the Last Free Nation Discord. We get a really good rev cut of that. And on there, you will find a bunch of channels. As I always point out, there's a channel for Hot Take Point Made. You can submit a crazy take there if you want to potentially get roasted by me, Zabatine, and Keyray. You can also ask questions for the Four Horsemen. Maybe you want to ask Richard Lewis something. Or you can ask me and Yamato questions, as you indeed do, and I will now read out those questions. So I will just go and find the first one. The first one is going to be, let's see. Oh, it's actually one for me. It says, question for Thorin. Now that you've essentially returned to the faith, he actually means, believe it or not, becoming spiritual. But I'm not a Christian person. I actually think he's a little bit off in that. I always say I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in Jesus Christ. I don't believe he was a person that rose from there. I maybe believe spiritually in the idea of redemption and the idea you could aspire to be a higher person. So I'm not quite, but I know what he means. He goes, now that you've essentially returned to the faith, what's the biggest piece of info or insight you wish you could go back in time and tell your younger, non-believing self? That's actually a fire question. So I'm Bot Pounder 420, long time fan of the show. So I would actually answer this pretty simply. I would actually like to know what you think after this, by the way, because I'm actually interested to know what your position is, Yamato. So what I would say is this. I don't say I'm of any specific religion, although I actually do now see the benefit of religion in the sense of, as someone who myself am older and I'm in a field where I've established a lot of things over the years, I do think there is a benefit to tradition, essentially, the idea you have something that goes back many, many, many years, because I'll give you the obvious example. I'm a big fan of comic books, Yamato. And the thing that a lot of people might not know about great comic book characters, pick any you want, Superman, Spider-Man, you pick whoever you want, Wolverine. Believe it or not a single comic book character was fully formed by the person who created the character. What happened is they came up with a loose idea, and then over time, different writers came along, different great comic book writers, and gave their little spin or took something the other guy did that they liked and built on that. And basically, over time, what you like the most about characters like Superman, all the different things, he comes from Krypton, he represents truth, mercy, justice in the American way, and he never kills. These are all things that developed over many, many years, and essentially many different people's lifespans and careers. That's what things like religion are like for me. You're taking ideas that are important ideas about the world, philosophical ideas about who are we, how should we live, what's the correct way to do things, and you're not just taking it it wasn't like it on year one it was all correct. A religious tradition is a bunch of great thinkers came along that in the meantime, and they worked with that idea, or they tweaked it, or they came up with a different perspective. So that part I think has massive benefit, and I didn't see that myself. I used to do the thing before where I was thinking but is it true or not? And true meant it had to literally all have happened and be a real a historical event, and if not, then I used to think the rest of it had no value. That is totally wrong. I mean, you could even say it just from an artistic perspective, by the way, there's immense value to religious traditions. Think about all the amazing religious art, Greek Orthodox icons and cathedrals in the West, and by the way, some incredible music and plays and things like that people. So that already would have value. I think that's an area I was quite naive. I thought you could, like a young person, dismiss the whole field because you didn't think one fundamental part was true. But then I'd also say the biggest thing I would go back in time and pop out of a portal and say to myself is, you're not even thinking in the right mode when you think about it as a literal, real thing that happened to a person that you could have met that did X, Y, and Z. I actually think the spiritual dimension isn't the same as the material dimension in quite a literal sense. I think it's about the mind and the imagination, and whatever spirit is clearly differentiated from material matter. So if you're trying to view it along the lines of yeah, but if I did a test in you're in the material plane. So the problem is it will always seem in inferior if you judge it against material standards, in my opinion. Whereas to me, actually, I would say my experience in life has been the most important things aren't material. They're things like love. How do you see yourself? What are your dreams? What do you aspire to? How do you inspire other people? These are all things that are all from the mind. They're all from the spirit, from the soul, etc. So I would say that I never understood the value of that. I thought it was like, if you found the right one, then that's better than the rest and you can dismiss it. So I'd say that. I want to know what you think, though. What's your relationship to like religion or spirituality or something? Do you have one?
I do like your angle a lot, in regards to how basically wisdom has carried over, because there is always something conventional in terms of how like biblical or like any like Islamic stories or any stories kind of get translated into something actionable. And in my mind, I think it in terms of how I have landed spiritually, like there were certain points in time where I think anyone goes through this, where you wrestle with the idea of what is the purpose of things, why are you doing certain things, are you just like stuck in emotion and then it's not going to be relevant at all, like you're just a fucking speck of dust in what is, of course, humans on fucking earth. And in my mind, I think what I learned from my father, because I grew up, of course, my father Palestinian, is I have an Islamic background. It's like in terms of how you react to things that are completely outside of your control, and understanding and accepting that this is basically like God's plan in terms of how things panned out. It ties into a lot of Stoic ideas too, in terms of how you approach things that are outside of your control. Because how my father, I remember specifically in terms of how he reacted to my grandfather's death, was it's like, of course, he mourned, but also it was basically basically the way my grandfather died. It was like a standard procedure, and basically they made a mistake. And
it's just in the hospital or something, right? Okay.
Yes. So
right.
he just passed away very, very unexpectedly.
Oh, wow.
And I think for many people that will be extremely fucking. I was angry. I was fucking pissed. I
it's
didn't
the ultimate thing where people are like, why do it happen? It makes you question everything, right?
And my father's reaction was very simple. It was, it's like God is protecting your grandfather now. This is what was meant to be, and this is how things were planned. And there's a certain element of that of focusing on what is in your control and reacting to certain things that are outside of your control in the best manner possible, because you cannot ever forget what is important, and you need to always act accordingly to your values. And to bring that back to what I mentioned before in terms of like this existential crisis that I think everyone kind of battles with, I think the opportunity you have in every interaction, I think is so important. As it came to my mind, I remember like we had that question of like Jordan Peterson, right? It's like before. Like we answered it, and we said that his biblical studies was something that was something that was interesting, and now he's like off the rails. I think he's just a grifter. But I remember there was a specific thing where if in your that he said, I think I remember reading this or hearing this maybe like 12 years ago, was if you meet and come across 1,000 people in your lifetime, and that interaction is an opportunity for you to be nice or be kind or move people in a certain direction, the butterfly effect that can have in terms of them also interacting with additional 1,000 people, you've already created a network of 1 million people. So every opportunity, whether it's a smile towards the cashier at the shop that you're doing or doing a good deed, the ripple effect on that and the effect you can have on human beings is immense. And I think living through that in terms of not taking things personal, and at the same time recognizing the responsibility we have with our time here, this is something that I've kept with me. And there were certain moments in time where I also, the same as like when I was sent to like to read and to study the Quran when I was younger, like I fucking hated that shit, Awesome. I was like, oh, I'm using my weekend for this. It's like I don't know, I'm just doing it. It's like, oh, I'm reading the things, but I really don't understand things. But the knowledge is there to to apply, you know, and you just need to translate it through a lens that makes sense for you, and that of course is your own spirituality, and it's deeply personal. And I think there is wisdom to be had everywhere, because in the end, it's like human beings have been the same for a very long time. It's like technology has changed, everything has changed, but it's like in terms of how people worked and the wisdom that is carried over, it would be ridiculous not to look at ancient philosophers or any types of wisdom that is there for you for the taking, to not consume that and apply it in the current day and age, because now it's very easy to just have your attention fucking fought for by every application, every piece of content out is just fighting for your attention to just kind of kill your connection to yourself. And I think that's extremely important for any human being, to understand where you are and to understand who you are.
I'll give you one last thing, which is there was once an incident, it was a very minor one, on Twitter that I actually, a few years ago, it might even have been last year, I actually just like tweeted and apologized to this person publicly. What happened was when Rainover, the jungler, was playing on Team Liquid, he had that $1 million contract, if you remember, after he'd been on like Immortals and Fnatic, and he was like, everyone was saying he was like a genius jungler, the way he'd revolutionized pathing, etc. Right? If you remember, that was when he had like, I think he had like wrist issues, and his game would gone to shit completely. And that Team Liquid squad that he was mega paid for, I think was even the one that ended up in like relegation or something, mate. Like it was going really badly, and he made a comment in an interview that was like on Twitter where it said something like that because he's Christian, like he was like praying for himself and his team. And at the time I actually made fun of him on Twitter because I was basically like, yeah, definitely like praying to an imaginary god's going to help you in like a video game, mate. Like, you know, sort of like fucking grope, you know, like what a stupid tweet basically. But the reason why I apologize, this is the last thing I'll leave you on this topic. There's a quote I always remember by Kierkegaard, the Christian philosopher, which I think changed my whole way of thinking about what prayer is. And the quote goes, "The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays." That actually is like one of those things that like blew my mind when I really considered it. And I would just say that's like the thing I would tell myself 10 years ago, basically, that I think would like start me on the track to wherever I am now. Right. The next question will be, one sec. Hellfire 206. Here's one for you. Are moose and reindeer commonly eaten in Sweden, or were they just tourist food at the hotel I stayed at? What's the answer?
It definitely shows up in restaurants. It's like high-end shit. They make meatballs out of reindeer meat and so forth. It's definitely, I would say, a part of tradition. More so reindeer than moose. Moose, they are very, let's say, solitary animals, and they don't do shit in flocks. But we have the Same folk. I don't know how to say this in English, but we have our indigenous, homies up in the north that are taking care of the reindeers, and they live in symbiosis with them. And obviously, like reindeers is a big part of, I would say, what is available.
Yeah,
but moose not so much. Moose not so much. Like they exist, but they are rare, I would say.
By the way, here's what's funny though. His question isn't as silly as it might sound if you're not from Sweden, because actually I will tell you a little detail that a lot of Westerners don't know, which is the famous dish of Sweden, the surströmming, which is that like rotten herring that they intentionally leave out. That is a meme, by the way. They don't actually eat that. Nobody eats that. It's horrible. And in fact, if you ever go back, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was even some stupid like marketing campaign by like the Swedish government that they were like, we need to have like an iconic dish and we don't have one basically. So we're just going to say it's that shit and we're going to pretend like it's a thing. But again, it's really horrible, right? Like there's no way you're eating that, Yamato. There's zero chance.
No fucking way. It's like the first time I ever even smelled surströmming was in Germany, in Fnatic.
I'm not joking. It is literally rotten herring, right? It sounds really bad, bro. It sounds really bad.
Bro, we opened, because basically on the can it says don't open this indoors.
Oh, it stinks as well, right? It's really bad smell.
I'm like, how bad can it be?
Okay.
But the moment we opened it, we were outside. We had 4 people, me included, gag reflexing. It was like a fucking Batman signal for all the flies in Berlin to show up. It was crazy. It's like all the flies just showed up at the same time. And then I believe like Razork tried some. It's just atrocious. It is just a gag. It's like, it doesn't make any sense, bro. I don't know where this idea came from.
It's a meme. If you go there, do not try that. You will not enjoy it. You won't enjoy it.
Don't do it at all. It's death in a can. Literally, it's death in a can.
Okay. Here's a good one, by the way. Sassy says, since I only started following League closely in about 2019, I was wondering what gives Reckless such massive fan appeal. Personality-wise, he seems nice, but there isn't much charisma there. Is it just because he used to be on a good Fnatic team? What would your take be? Why do you think Reckless is so popular? What would your take be?
I would say that I think the looks is definitely like a big part of it.
Definitely.
I do think that his the fact that in terms of how his career played out, especially between season 2 and then leading into season 4, there was a period where he was too young to just play the LEC, and he had the IPL 4 tournament where he had the massive tournament.
It's 5.
IPL 5 even, and then he had a massive tournament, and everybody was just waiting for his return. And if I remember correctly, as he returned, I think that he got just MVP of the first split that he played, right?
Yeah.
And I think just in terms of how his career played out,
it was the other way. I think he got the second one, but he was still mega though. He was mega the first year. Yeah.
I think he just captured everyone, because it's like when you basically, it's kind of similar to how Kalist, Kalist hype, it kind of played out in a similar fashion, where he won EMA Masters, KC, massive organization, and then boom, they get into the LEC. He can't play for a full year because they raised the age gap. Holy fuck. And then it's just about how you stick the landing. And the similar way, Reckless stuck the landing when everybody waited for him to come, when everyone hyped him up, and Kalis kind of stuck the landing too. I think this is a very, very important aspect of it. And I think being on Fnatic during an era where G2 wasn't so impressive, and then having that 2015 match against his former teammates in Expeke and SOAS and winning that finals, I think there's just a lot of great moments where Reckless managed to just capture the audience through the sheer force of play. And I think that any like old school Fnatic fans are basically like fucking Reckless fans, because there was an era where the Reckless dominance was very, very real.
By the way, I would even say I actually think it's a good question, because if you weren't around in like 2012 onwards, you won't really be able to appreciate the context. I'm with you, Yamato. First of all, this is even before K-pop was that big a thing in the West. He automatically is like set up to be loved by K-pop fans. Like, think about it. They like people who are like talented, good looking, and then they like to like read into their personality. So the less they know about like the extremes, in fact, if you notice, they even sort of like, because they're often a lot of shy girls, they like nerds. They like people who are like, if you don't know, Reckless, first of all, was like the Justin Bieber of League. Like, he was some like clean cut looking guy. He looked super polished. He was super young. He was really good at the game. By the way, he actually had no drama around him back then. Just seemed like a really wholesome guy. He even did, if you're a K-pop fan, he even almost seemed like his personality was a bit cutesy and kawaii. Like, people were loving that aspect. That's why they ship him with all his teammates. And then also, by the way, as you say, he had that cool storyline like the Callisto one, where it's like we were waiting for him to come for like a whole year. We all knew he was already good enough. By the way, nobody actually thought fucking Yellow Star or Pusha were better than him. We all knew this guy should be in the LEC. He was mega. And we were just waiting for him to come so we could see him battle against all the top players. And then, by the way, he delivered. He was also really good. And then, especially in the early years, I'd say before like season 9 or whatever, he was also really good at the game and really consistent. Like these, and again, the drama was all internal stuff. None of that typically tended to leak externally. Like even the ones he had with like, what's his name? Freeze and Forgiven, those were usually stimulated by Freeze and Forgiven, like it's more like he responded to their drama. He didn't usually come out and just say stuff out of nowhere. And then also, I'll even throw this out there as well. Even the whole thing of like him crying on stage, that's actually an area, by the way, where Dom actually was quite influential. It was only when Dom made that Cut the Western shit that everyone realised like that was kind of like a bit clownish. In fact, what's funny, Yamato, is just to prove what actual bullshit all these gaslighting fans have done. They all go, you hated on him since he was just a 15-year-old boy. I actually went and looked on my Twitter on StreamYard. I did a short video on this. I looked for the entire time period of 2012 to 2017. So I think it's until Reckless is about 19 or something mad. And bro, I never ever vaguely hated on this guy. In fact, this might blow your mind. The first time he cried on stage, that one after like the OMG game at Worlds, Season 4 Worlds, I even did a tweet that was like, I actually feel bad for the guy. Like, he's obviously under a lot of pressure. I think people don't know there was no drama for years with this guy. He almost had like the perfect media career. It's why I actually think later on that became like an obsession of his to like craft his image and stuff. Because basically the analogy would be, what's funny is I can't even think of an analog, Yamato, because when I think of people like David Beckham, they did have a lot of drama around them, but he was like that guy, the perfect heartthrob player who's really good at the game. And essentially everyone cheered for this guy. He was like, well, like you say about the Calist, if you're a European fan, you want someone like this to come along and be really good so that Europe has a chance. And by the way, his teams, the Fnatic team, were the ones that had a chance internationally. They were going to the semis of Worlds and they were always in the playoffs. So yeah, it's obvious why this guy was super popular. I know what you mean. He didn't have the charisma of like a Perks or a Carlos or fucking, some of these players, but like, it wasn't really that style. He was more going for like, you can project onto him whatever you want him to be. That's what always worked for me, I always thought.
I think that angle, that the mystery plays a great deal. I think that part is so broken when it comes to, it's so
good,
powerful.
Yeah.
I think it's like because I remember it's like back then it's like he would like tweet maybe like once a month.
Oh yeah,
and that tweet would be a moment. Like that tweet would be a moment. Everyone saw that shit. Like it just took over that moment of time. He would capture it. It kind of like in a weird way. It's like the Kendrick Drake beef. Like I follow that religiously, but the position that Drake put himself in, because he was always like, he's always on Instagram, always on Twitter, always always just active, always active. Kendrick doesn't do anything besides the music, and he just lets it speak. So there was like nothing to like hold against him. There was no like old fucking tweets or anything. Very little to hold against him besides his music. He doesn't use any medium, and that mystery was incredibly powerful. And of course the beef. But now I'm comparing Reckless to Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar's my goat, so I need to step back a little bit.
Right, here's a good question. Who is the Who is the most unpopular player in history? They say from every major region. We're not doing that. Who do you think would be the most unpopular player in the history of League of Legends? Who would we even pick for this? What would be your shout?
Holy shit.
It's hard, right? It's a hard one.
Well, like the first names that come to mind is like just for being bad. I feel like that doesn't intrigue me so much. But there's like players that people wanted to see fail. That were like really good at the game. It's like the names come to mind. It's like Forgiven, like everyone wants to fucking see this guy fail. Like everyone fucking, he pissed everybody off, but he was so damn good at the game. So it kind of, compensated for it. It's like, if you are that good, but you're that unlikable, you need to kind of reach a certain apex because, people need to be able to tolerate you. Like I think Perks is another one, right? It's like the whole fucking arc of like that smug face and, him doing G2 Vacation and all that jazz. But it's like most hated of all time. It needs to be like these guys that did like heinous shit, that came out in the aftermath. It has to be those guys, right? I don't know how much of them I want to name because I don't want to fucking...
I mean, it's people who've murdered people, beaten girlfriends. Yeah, there's all sorts. I know what you mean, by the way. I actually think this doesn't quite work. Here's the flaw that the guy who asked the question didn't think through. To be relevant enough to be unpopular, you have to sort of in your own way be popular, or almost like a wrestling character. Like, an example would be in the modern day, if you read Reddit, you'd think no one was ever a fan of Perks, mate. The joke is, the reason they hate him now is because he's just so huge. He's like iconic, isn't he? You can't ignore him. Even when he's in the NLC, you have to have an opinion on him. So that doesn't even really work. Like, the funny thing is, if I actually had to pick a real one, I'm just going to pick one where I feel like at the end, nobody gave this guy any credit. I'll actually pick one of your players, bro. I'm actually going to say Jack Troll. Because, mate, by the end, everyone was making it sound like he just like was a vegetable or something and he couldn't even like fucking move the mouse. Like, I've known so many coaches who told me this guy's a good player in scrims and he's like actually has a good mentality. Everyone made this guy sound like the worst player to ever play League of Legends in Europe. Like, it can't be totally true. He definitely did into a bunch of games, but you know what I mean? People go too far with the narrative sometimes, mate.
It's always the homies that like extend themselves and don't deliver, So it's the Jack Troll. It's like Jack Troll. I had like a fucking great time working with him. But there was this fucking thing, this meme that was created around him where he said, "We are macro geniuses," and then it's like that came up every damn time he would underperform, And some memes they just fucking stick with you. And when you extend yourself, you better have a fucking ironclad fucking arm that can't be taken away from you, because if not, that arm will be used to beat you in every opportunity possible.
Yes. Right. Wait there a second. There was a question that was about the fact that like KC reached the final with like less games won than won it, but I don't really care about that question. It's not that interesting to be fair, so we'll skip that one. Dark Heretic. It's just a basketball question, so I'll just very quickly answer. It just says, Dark Heretic says, do you still think the Mavs made a good choice given up where they are in the standings now? So this guy's such a fucking piece of shit. I don't even care that you're a fan of mine. You submit this question paid. Shut your fucking mouth and listen to my answer. So your logic is, now that you know that all the players are injured and can't even play, was it a good move? Well, the point is no one can see into the future like Doctor Strange, you fucking dunce. So nobody could know it was a bad move. And secondly, they haven't even won the championship, the Lakers, yet anyway. So maybe just put your dick back in your pants and calm down on that one. By the way, you will absolutely get clapped all upside your fucking face if you talk shit to me in these questions. So there you go, dickhead. I do think at the time I never even said it was a good choice. I said it wasn't a terrible choice. Notice how different that is. Maybe actually address me with what I actually said, you fucking bitch. Right. There you go. That's how it's going to, listen, if you want to get featured on this show, mate, you have to run the gauntlet. Exactly.
Nice.
Right. Nadnerb. Here's one. Maybe you can answer this. What is your favourite Nate Dogg feature? You know, Nate Dogg from like Dr. Dre and stuff.
Of course.
Is there a favourite track that Nate Dogg was on that you enjoyed?
Oof. Holy. I don't know. I feel like it's not really a feature, but his tracks with Warren G are just too classic.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Regulate or whatever. Regulate the classic.
Regulate is a classic, and then Nobody Does It Better. That one is just like that was a part of my ritual for a very fucking long time. You know, because I don't know, the lyrics are just too perfect. You know, it just makes you. There's something about Nate D.O.G.'s voice that just feels, as you listen to it, you just feel you walk with a swagger. You know, I was like, so Nobody Does It Better, even though it's a track of his with once again Warren G was on it. I think that's the one that stands out. Anytime Nate D.O.G.'s fucking spits the hook, bro, that's fucking a banger. You know, I think you can name anything.
I'll give you a serious answer and a joke answer. The joke answer is it's obviously Shake That by Eminem, isn't it? Because it's just an outrageous track. The real answer, though, is he was on the classic Tupac track, How Long Will They Mourn Me, which is one of the fucking banger tracks of all. One of the best Tupac tracks ever. Just look it up right now. It's straight fire. Tallahassee Riot Supervisor. This is a good question. It's a good one for you as well, mate. Who is the Jose Mourinho of League of Legends esports? Who would you pick for that?
It's like the arrogance in me wants to say me, because I'll lay down my arguments. I think Splice, it's like in terms of where the perceived like position of the team was, right? I think if I won championships on Fnatic, I think I would be the perfect analog for it. But just because I don't have the trophies, this is what makes the counter argument rough, and you can tear me apart on this. But in terms of where I brought teams, in terms of where the expectations was, my Porto, you know, my Splice, you know, we got to the World Champions, we got second place with a bunch of rookies, you know, never heard both 4 players. Same thing with Vitality, you know, we put together a roster and we had a very, very concrete way, identity-driven way to kind of play the game. I do think that's what I tie into Mourinho's like early days of his career, because a big part of my approach too was very inspired by Jose Mourinho. It's like I didn't care how we played as long as we fucking won the games, and at the same time in terms of how I interacted with the PR, I wanted to fucking take the flak, you know, I wanted to take the shit, and I would always shield my players, no matter fucking what. So it's like when I started coaching, Mourinho was a big part of my inspiration, but I'm just gonna say right ahead of time, I know I lack the trophies to say it, you know. I never got my Chelsea, and Fnatic should have been my Chelsea, you know.
I think I would just take actually the current TES coach on, because I think to myself, first of all, it clearly works best like Mourinho at big clubs where you have like the big players to work with, because these guys obviously get some sort of like emotional buy-in. I think that's actually the number one quality of Jose Mourinho's buy-in from the star players and getting to play the way he wants. Secondly, he has the arrogance. If you've ever read an interview with Om, this guy really thinks highly of himself, justifiably so. And then lastly, they've also had a lot of fucking success. Like you send these guys around the world and like they always get some level of success. It depends on what scale they're at, obviously. So no, I'll take Om for that one. Right, this is one that's way too long, so I'm going to warn this guy now. You can ask a cold question, but the problem is if to answer it, it would take half an hour. We're not going to do it. So we'll answer this briefly. The problem is he goes, Spookin says, in the spirit of LS's magic analogies, for each of MTG's 5 colours, pick one team that best... We're not going to do that. We're not doing all 5 with like fucking... It literally put like 3 different attributes for each colour. But what we'll do is we'll do like... I'll pick 2 colours and we'll pick a team that could fit this. So Yamato, if he says that black, the classic one that plays like attrition style where they have to do damage to themselves to gain power, if you remember. Black in Magic the Gathering is the idea of power at any cost, freedom and ego. Which League of Legends team right now would that fit? Who has power at any cost, freedom and ego?
Oh shit. I'm trying to even contextualize that to League of Legends, because how does that even look like inside of the game in the current meta? Like I wouldn't even. Can you explain this further for me?
I mean, when he says that, like, essentially you just fit in those qualities to a team now. You're overthinking it, mate. Just think of what team would be the one that, like, just, like, for example, when he says power at any cost, I'm already thinking it must be like an LPL. There's got to be somebody who, like, fights all the time or something, you know. Freedom and ego. I don't know, people who do crazy picks or something and they just play wild. By the way, maybe this could be TES. Maybe that's what TES does. Maybe they hurt themselves to fucking try and dominate the opponent. Because I do think they've never seen a fight they didn't like Yamato. They've never seen one.
Toby Swartz, in your second explanation, definitely. Like, Toby Swartz is the one that makes sense. It's like, these guys are the epitome of not giving a fuck about conditions and fighting at all costs, for sure.
Okay. On the other end, though, here's a good one. I want you to give me this one. This is the last one we'll do. For green, he describes that as growth, endurance, and resilience. So who would that be? Who'd be green?
Kind of like I do think it kind of fits our life.
Okay.
It's strange because How Life has a wide range of play because it's just that good. But I do think like when they're going into the game and they need to diffuse the enemy and take the time and set their pacing, and the fact that they made so many game 5s and endured through that, I do think that it applies to How Life, because even in that finals, like KC game when they played against that draft that is much weaker early, their discipline and their precision playing around pockets of information to punish and to understand what to give up, to not, of course, give the enemy any opportunities. It's like how they maneuvered around that. It was like the first 20 minutes, it was picturesque in terms of how they played. So I would associate with How Life for sure.
By the way, if we can do like past year's teams, I think for that one, I might even pick last year's Gen G. If you think about that, like they were the ultimate team for like scale, like fucking, you can't do anything on the map to them. They just respond correctly. Yeah. By the way, it's not a bad question. The problem is, like I say, you need like half an hour to do this one justice. Right. Far Night 92 says football is often criticised by Americans for its lack of goals, often games ending in 0-0 ties, 0-0. As a game, football has seen few changes in its rules in the last 30 years when compared to most American sports. Do you think there is good reason for this criticism? How would you change football to make it a more dynamic game? What would your answer be? Are you a football fan, by the way?
I'm a football fan. I grew up with it. I played it super much. Nowadays, I don't keep up so much. So like I don't know how Erling fucking Haaland plays and Mbappe plays. And I was watching the most during, of course, like Didier Drogba era and fucking, you know, the come up of Ronaldo in Manchester United or whatever. But I wouldn't want to fucking change it at all. It's like it's the same fucking conversation we have in League of Legends, right? Are we gonna fucking have fearless football, like just to fucking have more goals? Like, are we gonna like enforce? Are we gonna move the offside line to fucking I don't know where you fucking shoot penalties from or something? Like in my mind, I think it's the beauty of the game not changing is that new styles and new dominant teams can always reemerge. Like you have seen so many different styles of play, which I think in the context of having players with different physical abilities and different ball control, like different levels of play pretty much allows you to be a lot more creative. I think in a game like League, where everyone kind of fights on an even footing in a sense, because the variables are there clearly in numbers. Like you're not gonna fucking tell me that, you know, everyone shoots their free kicks as hard as the other guy. Like the physical aspect and element matters. And I think that always thinking about history and in terms of how it forms and the points of comparison, I think that's so important. I wouldn't fucking touch a thing, man. Fuck that shit.
The sad thing is, I actually, on this show a few years ago, used to espouse the same opinion. There's a few years where I just didn't have as much love for football and I wasn't watching as much. But I have to say I was wrong, Yamato. When I actually came back to watching again, because the team I've always supported got good again, Liverpool, I have to say I was wrong. Like that whole take of like, the game always ends 0-0. Bro, that take is about 15 years old. Like in the modern day, all the top teams score almost every single game. Like when I watch like Liverpool play now, bro, it'll be like 3 goals every game. Like maybe 2 for them, 1 for the opponent. Like actually, if one of the things people have done through like how Pep Guardiola and etc. like revolutionized football is the build-up play is so good now. Teams get way more like sort of like chances in the box, etc. So actually, I don't think actually lack of goals is the problem nowadays. If anything, I think it's actually that it's sometimes systematized, and people play like a little like essentially. If everyone remembers, they're like, I think it's the best goal ever scored. Is that one that Ronaldo in Manchester United scored against Porto? Do you know the one where he shoots it almost from the halfway line, Yamato, and he just goes straight in the top corner? Like it's the crazy. It's like the kind of goal that if someone even attempted against you in like Pro Evolution Soccer, you just like quit the game and be like, this is bullshit. Like he actually did that in a real international game. The problem is, Yamato, in the modern day, they essentially don't allow you to do a goal like that. Like they'll just coach people, don't ever take a shot like that. Like it doesn't make sense. It'll never go in. Like look, it was Ronaldo, so it went in. But like for anyone else, they'd be like, sorry, it doesn't even make sense. Why not just like take a chance closer to the goal? Like, build it up, get more people up on the field. So if one person misses, the more. The problem is, I think they've taken a little bit of the genius of football out. But with that said, like I said, it's actually better than people realize. If anything, the biggest bomber to me is the VAR at the moment. Like even when they take 5 minutes to review it, they sometimes actually get it wrong, believe it or not. Sometimes there's ones where it's like they're like looking at a line, like is it on that line? It's like, is this still what we're working with now? Like this tech of like, and that can decide the game is the problem. So, but aside from that, I actually think football's in a fairly decent place. I think it's not as bad like that American angle. I will say it is the reason I became a massive fan of basketball, because since in basketball, each team's taken, say, I don't know, like 70 shots. Because you have more opportunities to fail and succeed, it feels more consistent when you lose or win the game in that sense. The problem in football, the classic example is you can actually have a game where your team has possession for like 75% of the game and all the shots, but I have the one shot that goes in and I win 1-0. That's what feels unsatisfying in my opinion. Whereas in basketball, like I don't really know what the analogy for that would be. I don't even think there is one. Right. We're going to do a couple more, then we'll wrap. Right. This is obviously one to be careful about here, but let's see if you can answer it. Franny Boy asks, what was the funniest Kanye tweet since his return to Twitter? Obviously, it's not a truth serum. The real answer might get us cancelled. But what could you answer? Is there some, because he's been tweeting some mad shit. So is there some funny shit he tweeted that you liked?
Jesus. I think I need you to start. So let me pull it up.
I'm going to look myself. I want to know. I know.
I need to remind myself of some of the fucking...
He's had some fucking wild ones these last few days. So let me see if there's anything we can actually even talk about. Let's see. Let's go back.
Bro, he just deleted everything, man.
Oh, he's deleted most of them. Fucking hell.
Jesus. This is
yes, he's deleted nearly all of them, yeah. Whatever then. I wouldn't say funny in the sense I enjoyed it, but I do think it's mad, some of the ones he makes, where essentially he will just sort of like tweet like a bunch of private gossip. You're like, holy fuck, dude, what? Like some of those, like the ones about Jay-Z or whatever, were pretty wild.
That's what I wanted to reference that. The funny aspect of it is how fucked up it is. It's fucking,
bruh,
oh shit.
Really, bruh? I don't know about that. All I'm saying, guys, is sadly, I don't think we're ever getting Watch the Throne 2. I don't think that's coming out at this point, I think the ship might, it was just sad because that was a banger album, but I think the ship sailed on that one, mate. I think the ship sailed. Right. Fucking hell. Wait there a second. Right, we're not going to, again, they've done that thing where the question is so long to even read it would take 10 minutes. So I'll do a quick version. Breaketh wants to know which region is the GOAT of GOATs? As in, if you were to form the greatest team from each region, which region would be the best? So if you make all the Korean GOATs playing, Smeb and all, if you make fucking LPL, I guess it's like Uzi I and fucking, whoever. If you make a region like that, which region is the winner in your opinion?
I think like the first, I think Korea has to be the one, right? Because I'm thinking like even in the context of BLG, I'm thinking more about modern era players, because I do think like the last 5 years are more significant to me, and the players that you just slot in out of Korea are just too damn insane. It's like we already had the jungle conversation about like Peanut or Canyon. That's a choice you have. You have Faker, and then someone maybe is gonna talk about like fucking Chovy being a part of that conversation, whatever. It's like sure you have some cool ones in LPL too, like a Rookie or a Knight, but I think the recency, like the recent players being in the GOAT conversation, like Zeus, is just a little bit too tough to attack, especially considering like BLG. Literally, I think like some of those players in terms of like peak form are in the conversation of being like the best of all time in the region, and they couldn't still make it right against a team that definitely don't have like all of the GOATs in their positions.
All I'll say is this. I think it has to be LCK. I think actually the real dirty secret of League of Legends is if there was no importing to LPL, I think LCK would have such an outrageous record internationally. It would be criminal, bro. I mean, like I even said, half the fucking LPL ones is just it's just a Korean mid laner. That's all it is. So if you put together, like, just imagine this team for a second. So here's my Korean team. I'm taking Smeb top lane, Canyon jungle, Faker mid lane, Ruler ADC, and then I'll have Kerry as my support lane. Good luck, mate. You can make any team you want against that, by the way, mate. I'll take that team all day long. Gun to my head, universe on the line, easy clap, easy. And by the way, how dare you in this question even tell me I can include EU and NA players, you fuck. You actual fuck. How dare you, sir? By the way, I don't even know if your Western Super team would even beat G2. I think G2 is probably better than the 2019 one. The joke is we already had the Western Super team. We actually had the GOAT of GOATs. They were all there.
We can make the LPL team for fun though. It's like Bin, Casa, Knight, let's say.
Or Tian or something you could do. Tian too.
Yeah. And then we have Mako and Uzi in that direction. You know, it's a cool roster.
It's a pretty good roster still. Yeah, it's still a pretty good roster.
That's a solid one, yeah.
Right, we'll do one more. And this is going to be Architect of Korean Esports based show. In terms of this is a good one, it's a joke, I'll warn you. But we're going to answer it like it's serious. In terms of pure intellectual horsepower, where does Doublelift rank among pros? And where would Shaq in basketball have ranked? So in terms of like how intellectual they are, among pro players, where would Doublelift rank for you?
Jesus.
Oh, it's Doublelift. Yamato doesn't have a beef with Doublelift, so I don't know if he wants to like flame him on this one. You know, we'll have to see where he's going to go on this.
Bro, his streak of wacky takes is definitely like unbeatable, bro. Like how he managed the walkout, fucking conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Like there's some fucking crazy moments. Even like how he managed the whole Team Liquid exit, saying spring split doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or like it's just I don't think that there's anybody that has had such a streak of like insanely stupid takes. So he definitely ranks very, very low because maybe someone that had shitty takes, they were smart enough not to make them public. So that also requires, some state of mind, It's like, what Doublelift did is on par with the PR statement of what T1 did today, bro. So it's like Doublelift ranks super low. Shaq, I don't know anything about. I just know that Thorin flamed his ass on fucking live TV.
It's the fact that if you actually did on Jeopardy, say, what one quality unites Doublelift from League of Legends and Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball player? Then you'd have to go, who was flamed by Thorin for 600 or whatever. Like that would be the answer on Jeopardy. So anyway, first of all, Shaq is dumber than dog shit. But you have to realize the thing I'll give Shaq props for is, mate, there are too many stories of like he has done like so much like charity work, help people out. Like he actually seems like a very good-hearted person. If you don't know, his stepdad was like a military guy. It was like a colonel or something, and he was like super harsh on him. But it means that as a result, Shaq was sort of like raised right or whatever, So seems like a very nice person. Does seem very stupid, I have to say though. But then again, he was a fucking physical specimen. him in. His whole style is, one, he's funny, he's got a good personality, and two, he's a mega basketball player. It's not about being cerebral. The problem with doublelift is this. I do think doublelift is almost impossibly stupid. Like, I actually can't comprehend how he's so good with his hands, but his brain is just disconnected. Like, bro, the craziest one ever to me, and this really says it all, Yamato, is, bro, when he had that beef with Dom and Monty last year, where he was trying to claim that everyone in league could tell that if Sion is locked in, you know it's going to be a lane swap. And then he said that he had himself played a lane swap, and he started showing the VOD on stream. You remember I made this video about this? And, and he paused it and said he did the lane swap. If you just went to the same VOD and hit play, there isn't a lane swap. It's just a Sion invade, and then he goes top lane. So all I'm going to say is this, Yamato, and this one sentence alone says way more than any insult I ever could say would have. The standard position of even doublelift fans, when they found out he was actually 100% factually wrong, Yamato, wasn't doublelift's evil. It was, come on, he's a moron. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That was his own fans' defense. Their own argument was like, hey, come on, you know he's a bloody idiot. He doesn't know what he's saying. It's like, when your own fans are making that argument, it's pretty bad, doublelift. You ain't beating the allegations, mate. I mean, pretty swear. I'll see how far I'll go with this one. Let's see. Thinking, loading. All right, we've loaded it, right? All I'll say is this. I think Lena's dumb as fuck. But next to you, she comes off like Albert Einstein, mate. Like, she found the right... Here's the secret she learned, Yamato. You know that concept? You don't have to be able to outrun a lion. You just have to be able to outrun the guy next to you. That's where Lena's intellectually operating in her life. She's like, look, I'm not the smartest guy, but as long as I'm left to this dumb motherfucker, I'm going to seem like I'm really... I've got it all going on, you know, so... I think he's dumb as shit, but anyway, fuck doublelift in short. So anyway, that's the end of that. Thanks for watching some of the insight. Oh, no thanks. If you didn't enjoy it, then fuck off. See you next week. Or don't. Either way, who cares? Bye.